What's up, heathens? How are y'all doing? I'm not sure which one of us is hosting tonight, but I figured I'd take the lead, I guess. Hope everybody's doing great tonight. Ian, it's so great to be finally hosting with you.
Yeah, and it's so great that you took the lead. Man, wouldn't it have been awkward if both of us, if the music stops playing and then both of us are just completely silent? Holy, I don't even know what I would do. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
great to be here, uh, having a blast already.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody, we're taking calls tonight from people. And we don't have any callers in queue yet, but if you are in the chat there and you want to debate us on, whether or not the Bible is moral or immoral, if anything like that, just call us at 720-619-2288, or you can hit up the link in the description. If you're outside of the United States or North America or whatever, hit that up. We'd love to hear from you. I know I've been hitting the morality of the Bible aspect a lot here lately. The one thing on my Facebook page that has been getting a lot of hate was on Sunday. I made a meme that says that had John Bernthal's Punisher on it and Jesus, and I juxtaposed them against each other, and I said one of these will stop a rape, and the other one will watch it happen and blame the victim, and that totally pissed everybody off. And they're like, obviously you haven't read the Bible. And I'm just like, where in the Bible does it indicate that Jesus would actually stop a rape from happening? And I don't know where that exists. Because anytime you ask a Christian or anybody of the Abrahamic faith, like, well, why doesn't God, slash Jesus stop rapes from happening now? It's like they give you the whole free will kind
Mm.
of argument, and that just makes me think, like, okay, well then that just means Jesus would watch it happen, and I don't think that I'm wrong in that.
It has like an even deeper implication, I think, too, because Jesus's big message is like you should treat others the way that you want to be treated. Well, clearly, like Jesus is not stopping these rapes in the same way, which is like how he would want to be treated. So it seems to imply that if I ever found like Jesus the Christ getting raped, that he would not want me to do anything about that, which is really unintuitive to me. I don't know. I guess maybe my ethics are just worse than his, but that seems like a really easy situation to do something about.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of interesting that you bring up the whole doing to others as you would have them doing to you, and how that would apply there. Because I mean, essentially, you'd just be standing by watching, Jesus get raped, and
Yeah.
he'd be like, "Why aren't you helping me?" And it's like, well, do unto others and everything.
Yeah. In fact, well, I think specifically for like the crucifixion, it kind of has like wacky implications about that. Should all those other people got crucified, Jesus didn't stop it. It becomes like way less of a tragedy, right? Like, I don't know. It's almost like in the nature of a suicide at that point that Jesus wouldn't want you to stop his crucifixion. It's like death by cop or something along those lines. Um,
Yeah. Well, so I'm kind of curious, like, whenever you do your live debates over there on TikTok and everything, do you ever specifically cover like the God is evil aspect, or the God is immoral, or the Bible's immoral? Do you ever do that directly?
Occasionally, like obviously it comes up by osmosis when we're evaluating whether or not the Bible is true. But I've occasionally ran topics where we talk about how God is like unbelievably sick and cruel. I think that there's like a couple of verses that are just unresolved. Like I've heard all the best apologetics for them, and they're all just awful. Like it gets you no closer to being out of the problem. Like for example, I think like the best, this is like my go-to, it's my bread and butter, is the Amalekites. There's just no defending it. It's
Hmm.
just so clear that, you know, in the Exodus, the Israelites get attacked by the Amalekites. They fight one battle and the Israelites prevail over the Amalekites, but God's like, nope, just beating them isn't good enough. We're gonna kill their like great grandchildren. We're gonna wait 400 years and kill people who had literally nothing to do with this at all. And then, sure enough, God does exactly that. He says, now go kill the men, the women, the children, the infants. Don't spare them, kill all of them. And then they do that. They kill the men, the women, the children, and the infants, but they leave the king alive, and they leave like some of the best, cow and sheep alive. And then God's like, what did I fucking tell you? I told you kill all of them. You left
Did I
some alive.
did I fucking stutter?
Yeah, yeah, literally. And then I don't know, like the apologetics for that one are just like nonsensical. A lot of people will just bite the bullet and say, yes, it happened. And in fact, like this was like a really good genocide. They simply had to. And then, some people will try to get out of it by saying it's hyperbole, but it's not hyperbole because you can go and
Mhm.
look at the word there. The word has like a very specific meaning when it talks about like annihilating them. It's I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's like harem or karem or something like that. And
Mhm.
this word, like God goes into like such detail laying out like the specifics of this word in like Deuteronomy. He's like, yeah, these select nations, you're gonna completely eliminate them. You're gonna wipe them off the face of the earth. You're gonna kill all that breathes. He spells it out like 10 or 12 different ways. It's
Mhm.
so unrecoverable.
It really is. And I was actually so I spoke at the Ark Encounter protest at the beginning of this month, and some AIG people, Answers in Genesis, they came out there. It was their social media team, and they had a guy that was like interviewing people and everything. And then after like all of the speeches and whatnot, he decided that he was going to get up to the podium and just start free debating anybody in the crowd that would do it. And so somebody came over and was like, yeah, that guy over there is just debating anybody. I'm like, wait, he's just debating anybody that'll walk up. And so I put my shit down and I'm like, I'll go debate him. And so I walk over there and I start debating him and everything. And like people are kind of like all over the place with their stuff. And so I tried to corral the conversation. And I actually sat there and I laid out the first Samuel 15:3 for him. But what I said was that, God said to stab babies in the face. And he pulled out this pivot that was like, oh, I'm not going to interact with hyperbole. And I'm like, I'm reading directly from it. Like I had a phone and I'm like, I'm reading directly from it. And he's like, well, to stab the babies in the face. They didn't say stab the babies in the face. And I'm like, okay, slit their throats, break their necks, stomp on them. Who cares how they killed them? They're still killing them. And it was the most pathetic pivot that I've ever heard.
Yeah. And that's super funny coming from like the same group of people that would ask you questions like, "Oh, you think we came from monkeys? Oh, you think your cousin is a tree?" Like shit like that. Yeah, they're just horrendous faith. It's kind of surprising to me that they would have a person out there debating, that doesn't go well for believers, especially not the young earth creationists, and especially not on biblical ethics. Any issue at all. Why would you invite such rigorous scrutiny to a position that
I,
can't even
yeah,
establish itself otherwise?
I don't know, but I let go of the conversation when I got him to say that it was good to stab babies in the face. Like I was like, is it good to stab babies in the face in that situation? He's like, yes. And I'm like, all right, I'm done. And like I just let other people have at him, but I was able to stop him from doing an appeal to emotion to somebody that was talking to him, because the guy was essentially kind of getting a little bit personal with him. And so like I could tell, you could always see it with the apologists, especially those kinds of apologists. They see that moment where they can really hook you emotionally and they try to appeal to that. And I stepped in right in the middle of that and I'm like, look, you can't don't do that thing, but also we still haven't finished our conversation about biblical morality. Which I do want to mention, anybody that's in the chat right now and you have a problem with anything that we're talking about right now, do call in. The number is 720-619-2288. If you're watching, I'm sure that there's a poll up talking about whether or not you've smashed that like button. go ahead, smash that like button, share this out. It'll get us into the algorithm so that we get some good theist callers up in here. Currently, we don't have anybody calling in, but we would definitely welcome anybody calling in. And then finally, $5 or more super chats we will be addressing at the end of the stream. So if you would like to ask us a question, ask Ian a question, feel free to send those in. We would love to interact with those. So now, Ian, I'm just kind of curious. I know that you tend to, go into the more philosophical side of things.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of like, what would you say is like your best argument against like God's existence in general?
So there are a lot of models of God. This is something that you learn very early on, which is that people have been grappling with this exact question pretty much nonstop for the last like 2,500 years. People have been wondering about like this is like one of the first things that Plato is laying out in like he wrote like an entire book about his god equivalent called the Timaeus, and he didn't quite believe in God. He believed in like a very powerful like former, who took the forms and put matter into these like forms and then made like trees and planets and plants and shit. Some just like very powerful dude. But there are like a lot of like very different models for God, but I think like probably the good true motivation is this, which is that minds are very derivative. Like typically what we understand God to be is like a mind that everything else depends on for its existence. But minds are very dependent things. You're in order to know things, it depends on like there being like some reality that your beliefs are in alignment with. That's how you can have true beliefs, which is required for knowledge. Is that you need like these other things, and it's just so far down the chain to have like a mind. Our familiarity with minds comes through brains, and brains are so far down like the chain of like ultimate beings. I don't know, it's a bit abstract, but I just don't think that a mind is the right thing to be the ultimate being. I also think that you run into really big problems with God and time. It doesn't seem like God could be the creator of time. In fact, it doesn't seem like there could be a state where time comes into existence, because then there'd be this timeless state and there'd be like a temporal state, and then the timeless state would cease to exist at a specific time. But if something ceases to exist at a time, then it's just temporal. Everything that ends at a time is in time. It's trivial. And you need to say that this, like, as soon as the first moment of time comes into existence, like the timeless state stops. So I don't know. It's a bit rambly, but that to me is like, I just think that they're like pretty big, uh, hard to resolve problems related to God and time.
Yeah, I've brought that up to a number of different interlocutors, and it seems like they don't understand the problem with that. Because I'll sit there and I'll try to explain it to them. It's like, well, look, if God is outside of time, then there's no time for him to do anything. Like, there's no way that he can change like state, or he can make a
Mhm.
decision or anything like that. And they I don't understand their thought process on it, because it's like they're saying, oh, there's this kind of time, and then there's God version of time that is
Mm.
actually not time, but it is time because he can still do things. I don't know. It kind of seems weird. I remember watching one of your I don't know if it was a clip or if it was an actual live stream, where you were talking to somebody and you seemed to at least for the sake of the argument, go with a sort of half in, half out sort of situation for God, like a God that's half in time and half out of time. I don't know. Do you remember that conversation?
I have no idea. I mean, so you
Okay.
probably mean like one of two things, right? Either you mean God's both in time and out of time, and that's a contradiction, right?
Yeah.
Can't have those. But there is this other model of God in time. It's called the hybrid model, and it's most prominently defended by bullet biting Bill himself, William Lane Craig. You have what William Lane Craig is basically saying is that he thinks that when God hasn't created, you can't say prior, because then they get like really pissy about that. He's not prior to creation. It's God without creation. This God without creation is timeless. And then God begins to create. He's just sitting there with his dick in his hands doing nothing. And then he's like, okay, creation. And then at that point, God is temporal,
Yeah.
which there are just so many problems with. He needs to say that that's not a change because all changes happen within time. So instead, you just have two states: God without creation that's timeless, God with creation that's in time. And then if you ask what the relation is between them, they don't really have an answer. They want to say that he's like God without creation is causally prior to God with creation, but also God without creation isn't creating, like he's not causing anything. Because if he was causing something, then that thing would just exist, but it doesn't because he's
Right.
without creation. So instead, what you end up with is like you have this God that isn't causing anything, that's outside of time, that's causally prior to this God that has caused something that's in time. And it's
Mhm.
just baffling. It's just a baffling position.
I find that William Lane Craig, Low Bar Bill, has a number of perplexing positions. I know that one of his, I guess, bread and butter would be the Kalam cosmological argument. How do you feel about that? The way that he presents it.
It's so interesting. I'm glad you're asking me these questions because I'm writing like a paper. I'm going back to school. I'm trying to get I'm working to assemble the materials to go to like a philosophy PhD program. And one of the things that is involved with this is that I've seeked out a professor that publishes in philosophy of religion who works at a community college, and I'm taking community college courses. And he's helping me write what's called your writing sample, which is like in order to get into philosophy graduate programs, you need to publish your own piece of philosophy that's like an original thought of yours, something that could potentially get like peer reviewed and published in like a philosophy research journal. And I'm writing it on the cosmological argument, responses to arguments including the Kalam. So here's the idea. I think that all cosmological arguments fall victim to this problem. They need two separate modes of being. What's a mode of being? It's just like a way that you are. So the Kalam, the two modes of being in the Kalam is that they need the eternal first thing to cause the non-eternal second thing and all the subsequent things. If they have this first thing not be eternal, that is like there's some point where it begins to exist, well, it's not the first thing because then that needs a cause. The Kalam, I'm sorry, I should back up. The Kalam cosmological argument is the argument that everything that begins to exist has a cause, that the universe began to exist, and that therefore the universe needs a cause. And then there's like subsequent reasoning about how, well, this cause must be eternal. It couldn't have begun to exist. Otherwise, it would itself need a cause. So, okay, we have this eternal thing. That's the eternal mode of being, and it causes these like non-eternal things. Um, so I think that asking the question about God's act of creation, is God's act of creation eternal? Or is God's act of creation one of the things that begins to exist? I think that in order for the cosmological argument to work, any cosmological argument, you need these two distinct modes of being. You need net necessity and contingency. You need eternity and like things that begin to exist. You need I don't know, like things that are moved and like an unmoved thing. You need like these two distinctions. And when you ask the question, which of these two distinctions is the correct one to apply to God's act of creation, the entire cosmological argument collapses every single time. If I think the best, so that's a lot of groundwork for this. I think the best response to the cosmological argument, or one of them, is this: either God was eternally creating or not eternally creating. If God's eternally creating, then creation's eternal, and actually the universe doesn't begin to exist. So the Kalam fails. But then if God begins to create, then he changes. So he's in time, which means that in fact, the universe coming into existence isn't the beginning of time. God has an infinite temporal regress. He must exist for all eternity in time. So the way that they try to motivate that the universe began to exist is by arguing that you can't have like this infinite succession of moments. But God would exist in an infinite succession of moments if he changes. That would make him temporal. He would be temporal before creation. So, you end up in one of two routes. Either God, either the okay, sorry, let me back up. So the two modes of being, you need the eternal thing that creates all the non-eternal things. If they say that God's act of creation is one of the eternal things, well, then everything becomes eternal. But if they say that God's act of creation begins to exist, well, then God gets dragged into the category of things that begin to exist. Or you end up with the infinite temporal regress. Yeah, I don't know. That was rambly, but I hope that made sense.
I mean, it made sense to me. I was actually just thinking that typically, whenever the Kalam cosmological comes up, or just cosmological arguments in general come up, they they want to appeal to the whole idea that infinite regresses can't actually happen, like they can't actualize or whatever. And I always found it particularly hypocritical of them to have a problem with that. It ends up being kind of special pleading, because they're trying to specially plead for their God being an eternal regress right into the past, but at the same time, apparently that's the only thing that can be eternally regressing, right? I mean, that's how I've always kind of understood that. I mean, would that be a correct way of understanding it?
I think so. I think that that's like basically correct. Is that the way the Kalam plays out is that you what they're really dying to have is like some reason to think that God can be eternal, but the universe can't. And the way that they're trying to establish this is by saying that time has a beginning. Um, but there just isn't a good symmetry breaker. Like they try to give all these arguments for why infinite regress is impossible. All the arguments are really bad. They've been viciously criticized by like a ton of people in the literature. There's like very few people who defend that this like temporal infinite regress can't happen. And indeed, if you think that God changes, if you think that God's in time, then God just lives within the infinite regress. He's just always existed. Also, I mean, the theist is committed to like a trillion infinite regresses. They think that God has infinite knowledge. They think that God has eternally existed. They think that God has like infinite powers. Maybe God has the power to make a Hilbert's hotel. I wonder what they'd say if you asked them that question.
Is God so powerful he can actualize a Hilbert's hotel?
Yeah.
um Now, I've typically, and maybe since you're more philosophically minded, I've always come at theists with this one argument that is basically asserting, like, if you're asserting a triomni God, I usually go the route of saying that I know for certain that that God can't exist because it violates the law of non-contradiction. At least it violates at least that one law,
Wait,
because
sorry, can you say it one more time? Just the last
uh
sentence.
so the uh I know that the triomni God can't exist
Sure.
because it violates the law of non-contradiction,
Okay,
because
yes.
there's no way that he can be omnibenevolent and omniscient and omnipotent all at the same time. He's got to be some subset of those, because, like, obviously we have the problem of evil. Like, either it's the evil that he causes in the Bible or whatever holy book, or the natural evils in reality that are allowed to happen. So it's like he can't be omnibenevolent and all powerful and all knowing. And if he can't stop things for one reason or another, then he's not omnipotent. And if he doesn't know about those things, or doesn't know a way to affect whatever kind of conclusion or kind of thing that he wants to affect, then he's not omniscient, right? Like, he should be able to know a way to accomplish whatever, while maintaining anything that he wanted to maintain. Like, that would be part of omniscience, I think. But I don't know. What do you think about that route or whatever?
Yeah, I think the problem of evil in general is very promising. I definitely think that I like the route. The I mean, obviously God knows the ways to achieve his goals without having to go through these like horrible, horrible things. There's this is kind of similar to an argument that exists in the literature. It's first put forward by J.L. Schellenberg, who, for those of you who don't know, you might be more familiar with his argument, divine hiddenness. He is the divine hiddenness guy, the first one, and uh, so in terms of he has like this argument from like horrific suffering that goes something like this. Well, I mean, people suffer like they don't just have like some suffering, they suffer like life ruining, horrible, traumatizing, like they get like kidnapped and they get like their limbs hacked off and they get like tortured to the point of insanity, like suffering that is just unrecoverable from. There is no salvaging like a good dignified life after some of the suffering that some of these people endure. And God needs to have, there must be some other way to achieve like the greater good that this is towards. And God like must just know like a way to have whatever greater good he wants without this. This is like it's just too much, If it's required for our, if it makes us lose out on our greatest good, whatever that may be, by completely ruining our lives, then it must be made up for with something that's even more good than that. But there can't be anything that's more good than your greatest good. Even like the
Mhm.
theist might want to say something like, well, your greatest good is a relationship with God. But then it's really strange that there is suffering that's so bad that it makes people atheist. For example, I'm totally blank. Madame Curie. Yeah. Madame Curie was a Christian until the age of 12, and then her mom and sister died of a disease, and then she became an atheist for the rest of her life. If her greatest good was a relationship with God, well, it doesn't seem like there's any greater good that can make up for what was lost there.
Mhm. No, yeah, and I feel like I feel like that particular situation is what causes a lot of people to sort of like reconsider like the directly encountering this natural problem of evil. Um, and not to pivot too much here, but I do want to implore people, if you're in the chat right now and you don't like what we're saying about your God or God in general, please call in 720-619-2288. All lines are open. We would love to hear from you. Also, if anybody would like to do any kind of super chats, we would love to see those super chats come in and ask us some questions. Would love that. There's also the call in link in the description if you would like to call in. Now, I guess maybe pivoting away from the immorality thing. You were talking about how you were writing a philosophy paper. I'm actually in the beginning stages of writing a paper on for like a biblical literature journals. I've got a few papers like lined up, and it's the topic has kind of gotten me into some hot water a little bit over there on TikTok. But essentially, I devised a number of tests to run through that the stylometric analysis tool, and I was able to refute a number of the bad mythicist arguments, like the whole Marcionite priority sort of idea, as well as the Roman this idea that the Romans created Christianity and all that kind of
Mm.
stuff. So, but yeah, I was able to put my engineering skills to work, and I was able to actually run a number of tests that seem to be novel in the field. I've got a couple of scholars that on both sides of it, both a first century Roman historian, professional historian, and then he's, well, let's see, he does work in um crap, I'm blanking right now. He does work in like statistical analysis, but he's got a doctorate. It's Dr. Aaron Adair that's here on the line. I've got him also looking over my stuff, but I'm planning on publishing in that, and it's kind of interesting. Although it's kind of one of those niche things, which I don't know if you've encountered that. Like some people out there are like, I fucking hate philosophy and shit. I get the same kind of thing for like the Jesus mythicism or like biblical history kind of deal. So I feel like everybody's got their own kind of niche to work in, and I guess that gets me to my next question for you is how did you get into like doing the online debate thing and philosophy in general?
Yeah. So the way that I got into philosophy when um, I was in college, right? My freshman year was 2019 to 2020. So I didn't get to finish my freshman year. We all got sent home early. And over the lockdown, I got really into watching like online debates, political debates, and it was just so cool to me watching these debates between people. And I just thought, wow, I wish I could do that. That looks really cool. Um, and I did. I dedicated the rest of my college time to um, doing exactly that, basically. I mean, I joined the college debate team, even though I started a lot later than most of the other debaters. I locked in. I worked harder towards college debate than I've worked harder towards like anything in my entire life. And in the end, me and my debate partner, we ended third in the nation after really grinding it out. And I learned a lot about philosophy there, but what it really implanted in me was this like deep love of debate. And then after that, I mean, I was looking for like a place to debate about the things that I believe in, and TikTok was like the perfect place to do so. So I was already an atheist, so I just ended up learning all the arguments.
Yeah. So were you always an atheist, or did you become an atheist later?
So, um, I was born and raised Christian. I don't think I was ever really into it. I don't think my family was ever really into it. I think that they did it because they thought that it was like the thing that they were supposed to do. They were like half-hearted Protestants. And then one day, we stopped going to church. And then a bit later, a couple of years later, one of my friends, when I was like 13, asked me if God could make a rock that's so heavy that he can't lift it. And then just like that, my belief was over. It was collapsed. Which I don't think that
Wow.
I'm not convinced that that problem works. Of course, I think that the theist has like easy solutions to it, but it was at least like sufficient at the time to get me off of a belief.
Yeah, something similar for me, except much later in life. I was hit with a kind of a no true Scotsman fallacy. I had a friend tell me it's like if you don't believe in the Bible literally from cover to cover, then you're not a true Christian. And so it's like I had to r- figure out, what I believed and why I believed it after that point, and it like totally reversed my entire worldview, kind of thing.
Mhm.
So it's kind of interesting, yeah. Which I think that would be a bad argument to use on anybody now. For any of that. Now I get the sense that you feel the same way about the Boulder thing.
Yeah, well, it comes up like if they think that their God is outside of logic or something. I mean, I think that the rock actually does work if you think that God can do logically impossible things. But at that point, you just have to bite all the silly bullets that God has the power to make atheism true, and that God, can make the sun both exist and not exist at the exact same time. Yeah, you just have to affirm like a bunch of nonsense, and that's pretty pathetic, right? Because it's like it's the philosophical equivalent of like I don't know, taking your own life, right? Like you hurl yourself from the top of a building. Philosophically speaking, when you say that your belief is illogical, well, at that point, I'm not really sure what we're talking about, or like what's the point of talking if your belief is illogical? Why are we trying to reason about it?
Yeah, I find myself getting into those situations often, and that's usually the sign when it's time to just like, step out of the conversation, like just cut it off right there. It seems to be a good delimiter for, at least not racking yourself too much, or not racking yourself, like stressing yourself too much over a conversation. That typically, if we get to a point where it's like it's totally pointless for us to even be talking right now, because and I encountered that yesterday with somebody who was just like all over the place with their theology, couldn't pin them down whatsoever, because anytime you would bring up a contradiction, they would just be like, oh yeah, I don't believe that. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like Protestant slop. I have
Yeah,
I think Protestantism, this is we have a caller, so we should probably move on soon. But I will say
okay,
you might have some thoughts on this. I think that Protestantism, while being like way more defensible than Catholicism in terms of like their metaphysics, is like the methodology behind Protestantism is like total nonsense. You're telling me that Jesus came to this time period where nobody can read and write, basically nobody can read, and the way you're supposed to figure out what the true church is by reading the Bible. What the fuck? How is anyone ever supposed to figure out what the true church is? They're all
yeah.
illiterate except for like the Catholic Church that's like reading them the Bible.
Right. Okay. So we do have a couple callers. Do you have a pick? Like, do you care which
Yeah,
one we take?
yeah, yeah. Oh,
Okay.
hello, Landon. Oop, there's a bit of an
Hey, how you
echo.
doing?
Oop, we're doing well,
Is it
doing
good now?
well. It's a bit
Awesome.
of an
No.
echo still. Yeah, you might want to
See
take
if
it
I
off
can fix it.
speakerphone if it is.
There we go. Is that better?
All right, let's see. Yeah, much better. Yeah,
Yep.
that totally works. Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Awesome.
I see you want to know whether or not on the free will topic, whether or not the compatibilist view is sufficient. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on what you're thinking?
Yes. So, and I reckon it's less of a prompt to debate, more of one to simply discuss, because I'm not sure if I have a incredibly strong position on it. To me, all the evidence would point against free will, at least the naturalistic evidence. So I was just wondering, where could we actually find common ground on it? What do you think about free will in the compatibilist sense? Do you think it's a sufficient response? Do you believe in free will? Kind of that train of thought.
I'm probably a compatibilist. I think that the free will dispute seems to be a verbal dispute, which for those of us who don't know, what a verbal dispute is like a time it comes up in philosophy where you evaluate the positions and then it's basically determined that all you're disagreeing about is not something that's like about the nature of reality, but is rather just like what word do we want to use to describe this thing. I think that we have free will in one sense and then we don't have free will in the other sense. So there's like the strong free will view, which is like the libertarian free will, which to me is like incomprehensible. And also, like, I think we just have really good empirical evidence against it. Basically, that view is something like you're the uncaused cause of all of your actions. You cause your actions, but there's nothing that causes you to cause your actions. But then that doesn't seem true. It seems like I form lots of habits. It seems like there's explanations for a lot of the things that I do. In fact, it seems like the only times when there isn't an explanation is when I'm acting totally irrationally. And even then, it still feels like I could probably still explain why I did something. Um, but there's like this other like compatibilist notion, which is that, there's like some deep sense of self. You have like a personality that you've developed or that has been developed over the years. And when you act from your personality, that is you acting freely, that is you acting.
Right.
So I think that's true. I think that if what we mean by free will is something like you're the source of your actions, or your personality, your deliberation is the source of your actions, well, I think you have that. That's definitely something you have.
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely. And I've read Sam Harris's free will book. It's really good. I don't think he takes the compatibilist view, but that's I think why he calls it the illusion of free will. Do you think the compatibilist view is simply more so that we can use it in a utilitarian sense, that it's useful or that it's true? You know what I mean? Because that's where I'm really struggling, because I get that it's simply something where we realize the self is a part of it, but like objectively, whether it's true or not, does that really matter?
Yeah. So I could be wrong. I could be totally mistaken about like the underlying like philosophical history that led to the development of like compatibilism. But if I'm not mistaken, compatibilism comes up most frequently when discussing things like moral responsibility. That moral
Right.
responsibility is kind of like the main make or break. That compatibilism seems to be a position that's related to establishing that even under determinism, you're still morally responsible because you still, your personality is the thing that produced the action. there was no coercive force there. You know, you were acting in a way that is like undeterred by I don't know, like somebody like brainwashing you, or like some chemical that makes you do evil things. um
Mm-hmm.
and and then, you know, you're responsible for those things, obviously.
Right, right. And again, I'm trying to come at this in good faith, but to me, it would seem, if I'm trying to take it to its logical conclusion, that when we say you made the decision or I did, it simply comes back to, I mean, that is also determined, right? If you can't get out of yourself, then things
Mhm.
ultimately aren't free, right?
Yeah, yeah. You couldn't have done otherwise, but what the compatibilist wants to say is that even though you couldn't have done otherwise, you're still responsible because, you know, your mind, your deliberative process outside of like some sort of radical shift in personality by you being like coerced, or you being like, I don't know, that you are acting from like some deeper self, and that, you know, that's you, and that this deeper self is responsible for these actions, so we're going to hold you responsible for it.
Hmm. Interesting. All right. Well, I mean, that's pretty much all I had, really. I was just going to see, what you thought about the compatibilist view, but I appreciate it.
Yep. All right. And if you don't have anything
Have a
else,
good
I
one.
appreciate the conversation. Thanks so much.
Awesome.
Yep.
No
Thanks
worries.
for calling in, Landon. All right, that was interesting. I'm glad that I had a lot to contribute on that one. Lots of thoughts on my end. Not really. I was really I was learning there along with everybody else. But I really appreciate everything that you had to say there. And I'm definitely weak on the more philosophical things, especially like free will compatibilist kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm glad that Landon was able to call in and get you.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. Next up, though, on the line, we do have David requesting up. Hey there, David. How you
Hello,
doing?
gentlemen. How are you guys doing? Oh, I prefer
Doing
Dave,
pretty good.
but that's okay.
Doing well.
Okay, Dave.
Yeah.
So Dave, what would you like to talk
But
about tonight?
mhm. Yeah. So I saw the prompt that said Jesus is evil, and I do want to preface this. I am an atheist. I'm calling as an atheist, not a theist. Um, and I've also been a language and literature educator for well over a decade. So, particularly, I have a heavy interest in mythology, and I don't know if I'm a mythicist when it comes to Jesus specifically, but like I do enjoy the stories. I do enjoy what it tells us about the history and its people. But that's just kind of a little background of where I'm coming from. My question is on the Jesus is evil topic, would you guys include the way that Jesus is portrayed in the Gnostic Gospels as him being evil, or is it just the Orthodox Gospels that you would consider him being portrayed as evil?
Well, I mean, as far as the Gnostic Gospels go, I mean, there is the infancy Gospels where he fucking kills a kid and then like brings him back to life just to kill him again, I think. So I mean, that's
Okay.
particularly bad. But as far as Jesus is evil in general goes, I mean, a lot of people like to think of the Gospels as having these very profound and good teachings, and I mean, sure, you can find some good statements, like in the Sermon on the Mount, but I mean, those exist outside of the Gospels there. And so I guess with the whole Jesus is evil thing, I think at least when I mentioned that, I mean in the larger sense of the theology of Christianity and what that means, because like in the theology of Christianity, especially modern Christianity, you have Jesus being God, right? I mean, if we were to take like a historical perspective of that, that's obviously a much later development in Christianity. That's not how he was originally seen, but just looking at how most modern Christians now seem to think of Jesus, like Jesus as Lord and all this other stuff, I would think that you would have to consider him to be evil in order for like the problem of evil to be a thing, like either
Right.
natural evil or the evil that he directly commands in the Bible. And I just don't think that there's any coming back from that. It kind of makes you, at least for me, it makes me question like exactly how many good things does it take to like get you to forget about or excuse the horrendously evil things that he either allows to happen or he directly contributes to.
Sure, but the Gnostics didn't view Jesus as being the Son of Yahweh. There's even arguments about his divinity, but I don't think we need to go into all the different sects. One thing that was really universal across the Gnostics was that they viewed Jesus as an awakener, and they viewed the biblical God of the Old Testament as a creator without wisdom. So it it really turns that whole theology on its head.
Okay, yeah, and do you know anybody that employs that particular theology now?
There are. It's not very widespread, but yes, there are people who still practice Gnostic Christianity.
Right. So, I mean, I guess
You know,
I wouldn't
that's
bring
bound
up.
to happen when you have 45,000 different denominations.
Right. Well, then, I mean, I probably wouldn't bring up the whole Jesus is evil kind of thing to somebody that doesn't adhere to the properties of Jesus that, you know, would make him evil. But I mean, that's that's the same kind of thing that I'd go with on just about any topic. Because, you know, for any particular sect out there, you've got different definitions of either God or Jesus or even Christian theology. So, I mean, it's not like a one fit. Yeah, it's not like a skeleton key for counter apologetics against Christianity, but I mean, I think that depending on how you view Jesus and how powerful you think Jesus is, I mean, I think that Jesus is, you know, can still be seen as evil. I mean, anytime anybody, you know, wants to bring up like, well, there are these good things that Jesus said. I mean, that's just them using their own, you know, sense of morality in order to cherry pick out of the gospels like what they like, and what they like is already good, which is just an indication that their sense of morality is, you know, a functional sense of morality for the society that we live in.
It does sound to me like indirectly you answered my question, that it's more the orthodoxy views and portrayals of Jesus than what we find in the Gnostic Gospels. I am curious before I dip out if Ian has thoughts on it too.
I know very little about Gnosticism is the problem. I certainly haven't like read any of the books, but I don't know. Like all I know about Gnosticism is that it's like suspiciously similar to Buddhism, and that all the Gnostics that I've
see
ever
that.
all the very serious Gnostics that I've ever interacted with have been kind of wacky. But I don't know. I think that to me, one of the things, like probably the most evil, fucked up thing that Jesus talks about is hell. I think hell is a totally unjustifiable doctrine. I don't think, I don't
The
think
Gnostics
Adolf
don't really
Hitler
share a concept in
deserves
their cosmology
hell
of hell.
forever.
There's not really much of that in their cosmology.
Yeah, exactly right. Like that's like if what's happening is that it's actually like a metaphor, then you know,
Mhm.
that's something that's like totally kind of like a different thing, right? Like at that point the
And I
metaphor is
think
just
that's
something
what
like
it
if you don't achieve enlightenment, then you'll be living in this like miserable state.
And I think that's what it is for me, and why I kind of do gravitate towards the Gnostic philosophies, is because it was more philosophy than religion. And at least the way I view it, it had more to do with learning to make this world a better place in spite of how horribly it was created. And I kind of dig that a lot personally. But I don't buy into any of the supernatural aspects of any of the claims made. I do like the ideas as thought experiments, I guess, more than I do as a religion or a form of worship.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This kind of hits on like a different problem that I have, which is that I really hate methodologies that are like steeped in metaphor. I really hate worldviews where like one of the gimmicks of the worldview is that, well, it needs to be like abstract and metaphorical. You see this with like Taoism a lot, where they can't just tell you what it's trying to say. You know, they need to be like, oh, it's like if I told you, it wouldn't be true. You know, the spoken Tao isn't the true Tao, or like Buddhists do this,
Mhm.
Gnostics do this. I think it's like frankly kind of a kind of obnoxious uh, for somebody to. I mean, I think that if the worldview is true and meaningful, then there's some way to convey it that is true. Like you should be able to convey it clearly.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think that's what I kind of absorb by reading these texts, but not buying into the supernatural aspects of them. It kind of gives me the freedom to figure out how to explain these concepts without a deity involved, which is something I'm trying to work on because I want to be able to explain my thoughts and philosophies like you guys do.
Yeah. Well, this is why I much prefer it's called analytic philosophy. It's like the current branch of philosophy that dominates like all the universities, at least like the vast majority of professors that you'll find in a university. What they're doing is philosophy used to be very similar to something like literature. It's now very similar to something like mathematics, or at least it's trying to be. It's trying to be like very heavily emphasizing like formal logic and like counterexamples and like clear criterias of what the position is describing, such that people can construct clear counterexamples to the position if the position is false. That like very clear meanings, very clear terms, very clear all of that. And this reading up on this has been so helpful because before that, it's just been like a bunch of like 16th, 17th, and like 18th century gibberators, and it's just not very like meaningful or useful. Um, uh, or at least like the what is useful, whatever useful thing they have to say can be stated much better by like an analytic philosophy professor who's reconstructed their argument in clear terms.
I like that idea. I think maybe I should pick up some books on analytical philosophy and try and figure out how I can explain the things that I like from the Gnostic Gospels in that way you just described. That would be free from the baggage of Christianity, I guess we might say.
Yeah, yeah, I think that that would be way, 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 way better. You like, I think that that's, in fact, I wouldn't even be surprised if there are some people who have done like analytic Gnosticism.
I'm working on one myself. I've been writing a script for a video essay trying to explain Gnosticism through the lens of the Matrix and explaining the Matrix as a modern Gnostic myth.
Hmm. Sure. I mean, I think that that makes sense. Oh, okay. If you want a really great starting point, um, I don't know. This is intuitively. So there's this website that hosts mostly analytic philosophy, and there's an article on Gnosticism on it. It's the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy. The Internet Encyclopedia of
Mm-hmm.
Philosophy article on Gnosticism is probably, um, I don't know. That's where I would go personally.
That sounds like no. Thank you for the resource. I'll add that to my research because I'm trying to make a really kick-ass video.
Yeah,
Appreciate you guys.
absolutely.
Thank you for your time. This is great.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks,
Y'all have a good
Dave.
rest of your show.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Okay. Awesome. Well, we don't have any more callers in our queue. So if you want to call in, do call. It's 720-619-2288, or you can hit up that link in the description to call in if you are outside of the North no, North America or whatever. you can hit up that link. Also, super chats are welcomed. Anything $5 or more, and we will address those at the end of the show. So definitely send in those super chats so that we can interact with those. So, Ian, currently, what's your like? I guess, what's your maybe go-to topic that you kind of go with? I know I watch you on TikTok there on occasion whenever I can catch you, and I know that you deviate between like a God exists kind of topic and some other ones. But do you have like a favorite?
Yeah, obviously. So my favorite is like by far and away like the God topic. Um, there's I call it like the tutorial mission because it really does feel like you're playing like the tutorial mission and like not the God topic, but another topic that I debate like the ethics of being gay topic. I just say, there's nothing wrong with being gay. And then the only people that like the topic is like clearly like very one-sided, it's really hard to come up with non-religious reasons why being gay is wrong, and then the religious reasons suck, they're bad. So you're kind of left with like two really bad options. So in that sense, I kind of think of like that topic like it's like the tutorial mission and like Call of Duty or Halo. They spawn in and they get like spawn killed by like a counterexample, as usually how the conversation goes.
Yeah, I imagine so. Do you I guess do you get the wildest arguments on that particular topic? The what's wrong with being gay?
Yeah, there's like some pretty like people just have like the worst like they'll give you a criteria. You'll ask like, okay, why is being gay wrong? And they'll give you like a criteria, and it'll be something that just categorically applies to being straight or is like something that like is obviously not morally significant, like something that nobody ever cares about. Like maybe they'll say, animals don't do that. Well, fuck, I mean, animals don't debate people on TikTok live either. So I guess what we're doing here is very wrong. Or, well, you and I are engineers. People will say, well, if everyone was gay, then we couldn't keep on living. Well, if everyone was an engineer, we'd all starve to death. Nobody would grow the food. It's just it's a horrible way of like evaluating ethical beliefs. I think like the more sophisticated versions try to draw like the ones that try to something that's very striking is that these arguments are about as good as like the academic, usually like Christian Catholic theologians or philosophers who try to give more sophisticated reasons to think that it's wrong. And typically they're just as bad, but with like fancier, it's like the same shitty argument, but you put like a tie on it where they'll say, oh, we're your bodily organs have like a purpose to them, and you're frustrating your natural ends. It's like the natural law theory gibberish. And then that commits you to like a whole bunch of like really funny positions. Suddenly actually in addition to like being gay being something that's wrong, it's also wrong to like kiss your wife. And it's wrong to do foreplay, and it's wrong to like chew gum. It's wrong to I don't know, like it's wrong to do a handstand. Like all this stuff is wrong now because you're using you're using your body parts for the wrong function. The mouth isn't for kissing, it's for chewing.
Yeah. That sounds like a interesting conversations to be had on that particular topic. I know I'll get typically I'm running something biblically related as far as like God goes and everything. And here lately I've had people request up and they immediately come in with this little number like do you think that women can have penises? And it's like that's the first thing that they say, and it's like way to start off the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, this guy's imminently normal,
Yeah,
this guy has a lot of friends.
well, it always amazes me because the ones that focus so heavily on those particular topics, I feel like I feel like it's a legitimate question to ask, like, why are you so concerned about other people's sexuality? Like, it just, it perplexes me as to why they would, care. And, it just, I don't know. Whenever I get those callers, it's always kind of interesting to go down those different tracks there. We do have somebody that's screening in, I believe. Oh, there we go. We just popped up. So we've got John calling in, and it might be up my alley a little bit. Hey there, John. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing all right. So what you want to talk about tonight there, John?
Well, I really just wanted to pick your brain a little bit on the whole mythicist position. I know, Godless Engineer, that you hold to that you hold to that the whole, and I would agree that the Jesus as he's described in the New Testament is definitely mythical. And I guess the only thing that keeps me on the fence with regards to this is that for 2,000 some odd years we've largely held the concept that there was a dude. And I guess that's where I wonder, how is it that it's just now that the mythicist position is getting some traction that it wasn't getting before, and why is that the case? Is it just because religion ruled so heavily, that there was no room for debate on this? Or is there some credible information that to the actual guy position that I'm not seeing?
Well, so I mean, the whole idea of Jesus being a mythical character as opposed to like a real historical figure is something that we see in some of the earliest manuscripts that we have. You've got I believe it's Second Peter 1:17, somewhere around in there. They have to fabricate a literal, like, firsthand meeting with Jesus, because there simply were no firsthand eyewitness meetings with Jesus to actually use. And so what they have to do is they first dispel the notion that they just were following cleverly devised myths. And
Right.
once they dispel that, then they fabricate this meeting with Jesus. And so you have people that are talking about those things, but also it's kind of important to kind of follow along in the time frame of this, because at the very beginning of it, you've got Paul, who is hallucinating Jesus and everything. And at that time, people that would receive divine messages or divine visions, they weren't seen as mentally ill or anything. They were taken as actually getting those messages. And we've also, through a more modern lens, we've been able to discern that people that suffer from those kinds of delusions are more readily accepted into the more fringe cult type of groups. And so the fact that Paul, most likely being a schizotypal individual, started receiving hallucinations or having hallucinations about this Jesus character that he read out of the Old Testament, the Old Testament scriptures. Him gravitating towards a small sect of Jews that were proclaiming that the Messiah had come and provided them salvation, that seems to follow right along the lines there. So you've got that scenario starting right there, and then you've got people starting to fabricate historical stories about this figure, and then by the time you get to the 2nd century, you've got the very first church fathers who didn't care about the historical nature of the narratives. You didn't have anybody that really cared about how historical the figure was. They cared about the divine truth that was contained within the stories and within the theology. And so you've got this vast time frame where you've got Christians that are controlling the narrative. You've got Christians that are controlling the documentation that survives. You've got Christians that are setting the story and everything. And once you get up into like the 1800s or so, then you start seeing people come up with some mythicist ideas, like independently of these original Christians. And so that kind of gets squashed immediately, and then it's only resurged, here in the 2010s or so, is where the actual scholarly forms of mythicism have come about. And so, I mean, it's always kind of been there. It's just, it's not been the popular view just because Christians have been the ones to kind of set the narrative on that, in that they're the ones that, yeah, that they can control the narrative. Also, New Testament scholarship, and there's an interesting book. It's by Hector Avalos called "The End of Biblical Studies." In that, he does kind of a survey of New Testament scholarship, and he describes New Testament scholarship as apologetics from the very beginning. It's essentially just educated apologetics at that point, and that's kind of what it existed to do, was to defend and protect the faith as opposed to doing actual history and all that kind of stuff. And so,
Well, yeah, that's actually
sorry,
very
go
much
ahead.
how the New Testament. Sorry, my apologies. I didn't mean to speak over you, but that's very much how the New Testament reads to me now that I'm an atheist. Is that it all reads like they're answering apologetic questions. That even the various Gospels with they're answering different apologetic questions in certain aspects, and definitely Paul with all of his letters is truly doing apologetics.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, totally. And I am interested to hear what Ian thinks about mythicism in general. I have a feeling I know how you go with it, but the thing that I would need in order to turn away from mythicism would be a reliable way of discerning between the divine archangel figure identified by both Philo and Paul, and like any kind of real historical source for the figure, because with Paul being the first one to mention him and Philo also mentioning the exact same figure by a different name, I feel like we would need some kind of historical information to solidify that it was an actual person as opposed to just a Old Testament sort of mythological figure. But Ian, I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I'm like super uneducated on this topic. I don't even know what my like standard of evidence should be. But I from like somebody who's like done zero reading, zero research on this, I think I have like a pretty low bar for believing that someone exists. That to me is like something that I'd probably be willing to do just based on like very trivial claims. I'm sure the mythicists probably have responses to this, but there are like some mentions of him by Josephus, some mentions of him by Tacitus, or maybe there aren't. I don't know what the mythicists want to say to that, but I think I'm fine
think
accepting that there's like some historical character. What was that?
Well, and I think that was my position for the longest time. I think that's really true, that I had a really low bar for saying, yeah, I could believe there was a guy. It's just he didn't walk on water and he didn't heal people, because if he had done those things, then we would have a very different history in Roman culture and around that time that's extra biblical, right? There would be a lot more information from detractors, from people who were trying to do the same thing. We would have so much more around this if the guy actually did the stuff that was in the book.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so since we don't see that, I think that we can write that off as mythology. And I think, like you, that I always had a really low bar for there just being a guy that they made up these myths around.
Yeah. That's basically my position.
And I do want to agree with Ian on something, and that's that for the purposes of most conversations, I typically grant that Jesus existed as a historical figure. In that particular sense, like my bar is similarly low for existence. But I mean that's because it's kind of pointless to have that conversation with a Christian, at least somebody that believes in like a with like a magical version of Jesus. It's important to kind of handle the more magical version of it, like the resurrected Jesus. That's why conversations between atheists over mythicism is usually the most profitable. And then and Ian, we could definitely talk about the sources that you mentioned there if you
I'd be
want.
interested. Yeah.
Okay. So for like the Josephus thing, obviously, like a lot of people want to say that, there's like an interpolated or that it is interpolated so that there's like a simpler version of it, but we just simply don't have that simpler version like in our in evidence. There are redacted versions of it, but all of those trace back to the same person, Eusebius, and that's done by Alice Wheely. She did an analysis on that and established a chain of custody where all of those versions actually trace back to the one source. So the only source that we have is the highly Christianized version. But Dr. Aaron Adair, who's on this on the line, he's actually got a paper that he's getting through peer review right now that's analyzing the Testimonium Flavianum and has actually established it as being Eusebian rather than Josephine. And so he's working on that. And then there's the James passage. I'm more convinced by, and that's in book 20, paragraph 200. I'm more convinced by the analysis that it's a marginal note that kind of accidentally got worked in later on down the line somewhere. And then of course, there's, I've got other things if you're curious about other sources, but that's usually the big one that people mention. But again, like, I think that, accepting that Jesus existed, as just for the sake of argument, I think is perfectly fine. And if I totally get people not being like into that particular niche of argumentation, it's very much kind of like a Bible history nerd kind of vertical there, to be interested in it.
Yeah.
Sure. In terms of the Tacitus one, do you think that Tacitus just came like too late for that to be like particularly meaningful?
No, actually, there's a good book out there if you're interested at all reading it. It's Robert Van Voorst, Jesus Outside the New Testament. And in that one, he explicitly covers all the extra biblical sources. And for Tacitus, he agrees with R.T. France, who's a previous New Testament scholar, where they essentially come to the conclusion that we can't establish independence of the Gospels. So, like, Tacitus, wherever he got it from, seems to have gotten it either from Christians themselves through like Pliny the Younger or directly,
Yeah, sure.
or either that way, or it's just a simple regurgitation of what the Gospels say. And so, because we can't establish independence there, it's just historically useless to us, because with the fact that by the time he was writing in the 2nd century, he's writing about something that happened in the previous century, and it's just ultimately all it says is that there were Christians in Rome during the burning of Rome, and they believe this thing, is essentially what it says. And so, like, once you do source criticism on a lot of these supposed references, most of them fall apart. And I've actually found that a lot of historicists now are abandoning the extra biblical references and are focusing more on like Paul's writings or the Gospels.
Sure.
I
think,
so I guess that,
no, I'm sorry. Yeah, you can go for it, guest.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that, Ian. Sorry. So I guess the question then, though, that remains is like the origin of Christianity, if it's mythical, is then something very different than what we see in the New Testament. The New Testament is a fabrication of these origins that, was maybe written down in the early end of the 1st century, early part of the 2nd century, and it's or maybe even later. I mean, it could be as late as even the 150s, I would imagine, if it's Marcion. Like if this is really all invented by Marcion, including Paul, then that makes that the origin of Christianity, which is to me is maybe plausible. Like, I know the typical idea is that it was this oral, but the oral has to come from something. If there was an oral tradition that eventually got written down, quote unquote, like most Christians like to say, then the oral had to come from something which they say is historicity. But if historicity isn't right, then is this really a Joseph Smith type of thing where a guy says, hey, no, I had this vision and creates a following from that?
Right. So I've actually been able to triangulate both the Gospels and Paul's work to being philonic in nature through stylometric analysis. And so what that does is it basically, like, well, for one of the like for Mark's gospel, he would be Philonic, but Paul specifically is definitely Philonic. So that's between the one CE and 70 CE. So that's the time frame that he fits in just by the style that he's writing in. And then I've also been able to establish that through this one kind of measurement called hapax legomena, which is basically the very specific words that are used by Christians when they're writing about Jesus and everything. That they have very specific vocabulary that they use, and typically how it always happens is that those words get more frequent the farther down the timeline you get with the Christian writing. As it gets more and more sophisticated, you find the frequency of these words ramping up. And so what we find is that Paul uses those sparsely, whereas later writers like Marcion and other people that would be representative of Marcion school, they're using them a lot more than Paul does. Also, Paul's writing doesn't match anything that any of the Marcionite school would have produced. And so we definitely know that Paul, just by style, was not invented by Marcion or anything like that. Now, whether or not he was edited by Paul or he was edited by Marcion, that's another thing. And I think that you know, Marcion definitely did edit like a lot of stuff, and the things that we have now are definitely through the lens of a more second century sort of editing process. But as far as it being produced by a Marcion or a Marcionite school, that's just not seen in the style of Paul's letters. And also the Gospels. As far as the origins of Christianity there, I'm sorry, I'm kind of info dumping on this right now, but as far as the origins of Christianity go, what I think actually happened was that there were sects of Jews that were expecting a Messiah to come, and when the Messiah doesn't come, what they do is they create these new messianic prophecies, and it's the 356 or so prophecies that are heralded by Christians now. They come up with all these different supposed prophecies that are reinterpretations of Old Testament scripture in order to tell them about the Messiah. And so because they're interpreting these things out of the Old Testament, they create this sort of Messiah figure. And we actually have a historical example of this happening in Philo of Alexandria. Philo of Alexandria and On the Confusion of Tongues, as well as some of his other writings, actually identifies the exact same archangel figure that Paul calls Jesus, even names him and gives him the same role and responsibilities as Jesus. He just, Philo calls him the Logos, which, you know, if you'll think about it, John, the Gospel of John later in the 2nd century, actually adopts that particular title for Jesus and his own thing. And so what you have is essentially sects of Jews that were reading the Old Testament and crafting this whole new theology that has the Messiah already coming and absolving them of sins, providing salvation, everything like that. And all of this was to syncretize the Jewish religion with Hellenistic culture. This was something that was happening all over the place. And so basically Jews were kind of feeling left out. And so they were busy syncretizing it. Philo was syncretizing Judaism with Hellenistic culture. Paul was doing the exact same thing. And they just so happened to coincide with their interpretations of Old Testament scripture. And I think that that's eventually how it came to be. So I don't know what either of y'all have thoughts on this so far?
Oh, just to add like a quick thing to the end of that, this like Hellenization of metaphysics specifically starts happening, where I don't know, like the God becomes progressively more similar to a lot of like the like Platonic ideas at the time related to like souls and you know, like a prime mover and things like this, like these things that were swirling around in the thoughts of people from the times of Plato and from the times of Aristotle, become like I don't know, like a lot of Christians rip their metaphysics like directly from people like Plato.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it's not biblical. The Old Testament God was not all knowing. The Old Testament God was not even all powerful. He was just
Yeah,
maximally
he's just a
powerful. He
guy.
was just the
He's
most powerful
dude.
being they could think of. But reading of just a cursory reading of the Old Testament, you would never come away with the idea that he was all knowing. He's constantly trying to get knowledge. He's giving people tests. He's seeking out knowledge. He's seeking out understand by going, and he has to go look. You know, yeah.
He's a grumpy guy
I
sometimes. You know,
don't
he
think
gets
those were
mad.
Jewish ideas.
You know, he
Well,
loves, he
Yeah,
gets frustrated. Like he's just some
right,
guy. He's like
right.
Zeus.
Right, exactly, and he could be either good or bad. Like I don't even think that the Old Testament really even projects God as all loving, all good. I don't think that's the case, because the Old Testament God claims that he made evil, that all of it is his, and that he can be whatever is needed for the situation, for the Jews, for the Jewish people, and whether that's their punisher or their or father or protector or whatever, he's whatever the Jewish people need him to be.
Yeah. Well, and so playing off of what Ian was saying right there with the Plato, and I'm accessing like old and like something that I looked into a while ago, so I might be a bit wrong about this, but Plato had a concept of like perfect forms, right? Like there's like you had the
Yeah.
concept of these forms, and those were perfect, and any physical representation of them were like imperfect forms, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He thought that
Right.
the one was good. He thought like goodness itself, there's like some like big like goodness. It's kind of unclear how this all actually fits together, but there's like the good, and in the good is like the perfect human and the perfect tree and the perfect lion. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and so if you actually look into Hebrews, Hebrews actually has very Platonic ideas in that particular respect. Essentially, what Hebrews lays out, I can't remember the chapter right now, but in Hebrews it talks about how there are different levels to heaven. Like typically it's about 7 levels to heaven or whatnot, but essentially it talks about how there are copies of things that are on earth in heaven,
Yes.
and each layer of heaven has more and more perfect copies until you get to the very tippy top one, the 7th layer of heaven, and that's the most perfect copies. And so you do kind of have that very Platonic idea. I think that it deviates a bit from that, but I think it has to coincide with the different layers to heaven that Jews had at the time. But essentially what that means is that like there were structures on earth that were also in the heavens, and because there are structures and rituals on earth and then there are in the heavens, and each layer has more perfect versions of it, that's where the mythicism, the minimal mythicism, the one that I employ, that hypothesis says that Jesus actually descended to the firmament of the heavens, was crucified and killed by Satan and his demons in the firmament, and buried there, and then resurrected back up. And one of the ways that we make that argument, we establish it, is that Jews and Jewish Christians, they later had this concept of very physical structures and rituals and everything like that in the heavens that were taking place. And so like it's just not out of the realm of possibility for Jews to think like that at the time.
Yeah, I do think the whole thing is fascinating. Having grown up as a Christian and in America, it's almost impossible to not have some major Christian influence in your life, because it is so pervasive in our country and it's built into our language. And so these ideas and these concepts are really built into the fabric of our society at the level of language, which is, I think, one of the difficulties of kind of exercising the demons, if you will, of religion from our society. It's next to impossible because it's so built into what we are as a society at that language level. But that is why it's so fascinating to me. And to this day, I still am fascinated by the origins. How did we get this way? How did we create societies that are based off of these kinds of concepts and ideas? And why do we continue to perpetuate things that are just obvious fallacies? And but we do, as people, and we still cling to them for some reason. And so that does fascinate me. And but I wish we could find ways to extricate ourselves from it, because it doesn't seem to be helping us any longer. We would do much better if we could just embrace empathy as a core value as a society.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you're obviously going to get agreement from us on that. I think that this is maybe some of these values improved some things at some time. I don't know, not now though. Moral philosophy has just evolved like way beyond this. I mean, like, even if you take like the best readings of what Jesus is saying, like if you took the best verses from the Bible, they get the shit kicked out of them by like modern moral philosophy in terms of like the rigor and critique. For example, I mean, like a trivial counterexample, the golden rule is really bad at handling cases of suicide. Let's say I want to die and I should treat others how I want to be treated. Should I go around killing them? Like, it's something that comes in and replaces it, that does a way better job, is Kant's categorical imperative, that you should always treat everybody as being like an independently valuable being, including yourself. So Kant would say you can't kill yourself, and you certainly can't kill other people under any circumstance, basically.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's why I say that, obviously these things didn't come from a superior God. If we can come up with better ideas that are clearly better, demonstrably better, then there's no way that these things came from a superior God. And so, we can we can pull back the curtain and see the little guy behind, pulling the levers. It's not what we thought it was, and it shouldn't be that difficult for us to extricate ourselves from. But I think when it becomes an identity, and I had it as my identity for a very long time, and so I do understand the difficulty with it, but we have to keep moving forward as a people and as a society. We can't let these things drag us back to the Iron Age, like I don't know, certain people in office seem to want to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a great point, which is that the moral innovation, the great moral innovation of Christianity, is the exact same moral innovation that was had both in the same region, like 400 years prior, from people like Plato and Aristotle, who are saying like basically the same thing. And then even like very far away from that, you have like Confucius saying like, what you do not wish for yourself, do not do to others, or something like that, right? Like it was discovered by like everywhere embraced this principle. It's like baby's first moral consideration, right? Like, yeah,
no, and I love your
something profound,
well, that's the part that I don't know as well. Like, I never studied the philosophers or the great philosophers, and so to hear some of these things from you has really been helpful for me. And and I guess, I don't know, I guess the deconstruction process just continues on as you continue to learn and grow as a human. And I think that's the other thing. I mean, I'm over 50, and I still am learning and growing and trying to become a better human every day. And I think you lose that if you think you know everything, or you found it all, or it's all right there in the Bible for you, and it's all cut and dry and simple. Well, then what are you learning or growing anymore? How are you becoming a better human and finding a way to fit into the society that we're evolving into? I mean, if we're not moving forward, then I think we're moving backwards, and we need to keep pushing towards being better.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think I'm on my soapbox about this one, but I just think that we should never, under any circumstances, cede any ethical ground whatsoever in any way, shape, or form to the Christians. Their ethics are laughable. Even if like ethics are subjective on the atheist worldview, they would still be subjective if God existed. I have no reason to do what he tells me to unless I choose to. So ultimately, it's subjective on me subjectively choosing to listen to him. Also the ethics are absurd. These are silly ethics. Your husband can come home and beat the shit out of you every single day, and you can't get a divorce unless he puts his dick in someone else. Like,
it's ridiculous. Well, and the women never could divorce, and if you're just taking strictly biblical, ethics, which is ludicrous. But the women had no rights to call for a divorce. A man could put away his wife, but the wife couldn't put away anybody. She didn't have any rights. She was property. It's terrible.
Right.
It's terrible.
Well, and Christianity teaches you, if you look at Ephesians 5:33, it teaches that the wife should fear the husband, but the Bible represents it as respect, and it's like, that's that's not a good way to go about a marriage, is having your wife fear you. But also in Ephesians 5, it sets up the whole situation of marital rape, and so there's that aspect of it too. So, but yeah.
Well, when I was going through marital counseling, just to let you know that this was still taking place. My ex-wife and I, who were both Christians at the time, we were going through marital counseling, and that was brought up in our premarital counseling, that she was advised never to say no to me if I wanted sex for exactly those reasons. We left that meeting, and I said, I'm never holding you to that. And she said, good, because I'm never putting up with that. And I mean, and I mean, the whole, but that's still being taught. There are still churches out there today that are teaching that is good marital advice, and that's terrible. That's horrible, horrible teaching. And I just think we have to help people get away from that. And so that's why I really appreciate what you guys are doing. I saw you had a little lull in the action tonight, and I don't normally call in because, I want to give you guys a chance to speak with opposition. But this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you both a lot.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for calling in, and we definitely enjoyed the conversation. I always love being able to talk about mythicism. I feel like it doesn't come up enough, but I'm not going to make people talk about it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I may call in again with questions on that as I study a little bit more. I did write down some of the names of the books that you gave me, Godless Engineer. So I will be checking those out so that I can be a little better educated on that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, another one, an easy read and also an interesting read is also Randall Helms. That's HELMS. Randall Helms, Gospel Fictions. He does really good work on establishing that the New Testament Gospels are actually just sort of rewrites of Old Testament stories, and he does that from a textual basis. So like he connects the Septuagint versions of the text in the Old Testament to the New Testament stuff, and it's a really interesting look at it.
I'll have to take a look at that. I've read some of Carrier's stuff, and that's what really got me started down the mythicist path. Was reading his works, and I mean I gotta say his are very scholarly and can be a lot to chew on. But I saw some of those ideas in what he had written, and I like that a lot. And so yeah, I will definitely check that out. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Well, John, you have a great night, and I will. I guess we'll talk to you later. Okay.
All right. Sounds great. You guys both too. Take care.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on up.
All right. So we do have another call in the queue there. We have the rest of the lines open. So if you would like to call in, the number is 720-619-2288. So far, great conversations tonight. Like John was saying, we're hoping to get some opposition in. So if you know anybody that, wants to talk to an atheist or debate an atheist about God, whether or not Jesus is an evil son of a bitch, either way, we're flexible. But we do have David calling in from Texas. What's up there, David? How you doing?
Doing great. How you doing, brother?
Doing well.
Yeah, doing pretty good. So what you want to talk about tonight there, David?
Well, brother, I guess the headline is Jesus was fake, correct?
Oh, I mean, sure, he's that and evil and a bunch of other things. I don't know what piqued your interest in calling.
No, so I understand this. I know what's fake, and the one thing, it's not Jesus. It's the God of the Old Testament. And I would take that from your upbringing or how you were raised. They always tied in the Old Testament with the New. So if you look at everything that was done in the Old Testament, dude, it was wicked. It was evil. Rape, murder, slavery, everything. In fact, everything Yahweh did in the Old Testament, no matter how evil the people he was that were leading, he kept on promoting them. And you get to the New Testament, and Jesus is saying, give up everything. This world is nothing. In fact, this is not my world. And in fact, give up everything here and turn around. I apologize, sir. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Kind of seems nihilistic, doesn't it?
Now, apologize. I'm not dumb. What is nihilistic?
So, well, it's kind of like defeatist, right? Like you're I don't know. It's kind of similar to like Buddhism, where it's like, okay, you have to stop enjoying things, stop enjoying things, and instead, go to church and worship. This is why Paul tells you pretty explicitly, like point blank, listen, man, like it's better to not get married. You can get married if you like literally can't contain yourself, but all things laid out on the table, you shouldn't be, don't have kids, don't have a family. Only do this if you like can't control yourself, basically.
Yeah,
yes,
and then
and
Jesus, David, as you pointed out, Jesus said to give up all of your personal belongings in order and give it to the poor or whatnot to follow him. So I mean, you kind of laid it out there, like you were saying, this world means nothing, right? I mean, I feel like that's exactly what you said. Is that not a verbatim thing that you said?
No, you are correct what I said. And here's the point, and I think the point where he was trying to get to. Yes, Paul, here's the thing. We're reading everything. If you were raised up in church, everything you were taught, it was taught from the perspective that they were speaking directly to us and not actually to the people that they were directly speaking to back in 70 AD, 100 AD. Okay? So if we're taking that to heart, and we're taking that as we're being taught, which is modern Christianity, which is about the most wicked, temple-inducing, everything against Jesus. It's about money, power, and control today, okay? But if you take what Jesus was saying from the heart, what he was leading us to, it'll change your perspective. Now, did Paul know, or John in Revelation, or did they know something was coming back in 70 AD, which the temples was destroyed, the Jews were knocked out, they took them captive, and they turned against themselves, and pretty much everything has been completed. But there's one thing Jesus said that should insulate all of us, that should tell you we're okay. And the disciples were talking to him, and they said, well, how will you reveal yourself to us and not to the world? And he said, me and my Father will come to you. We will make our home with you. And Jesus said, I will manifest myself to you. And whether you want to, I know I can't prove it. I know this is not theology for you. This is not, you can read it in a book, but I can tell you when I came to the end of myself.
Sorry to interrupt, but how about we talk about like some of the other things that he says? Jesus says that he's going to return within our lifetimes, or sorry, not within our lifetimes, within the lifetimes of the people standing there. He says, truly, some of you standing here will not taste death until I have returned, until like the kingdom of God has returned. He says it so many times across so many gospels.
Yes.
And every single one of them is false, right? Like he just lies straight up.
Yeah, yes. So I will tell you that, and I'm just finishing. It was the day, and I didn't even know God would do this. I didn't even know Jesus would do this. I tried to go to church, never really got into it. It never hit me. It seemed like it was always fake. I tried, and it never changed my life. It wasn't until I hit my knees, and it was on my knees in my office, bam. And the worst time of my life, God came over me, and it changed my whole entire life. I never thought the same again. I couldn't even understand.
Wait, hold on. Can I clarify something? So you said that you were on your knees in your office and God came on you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. If you want to take that in a off way, no, he came over me. In other words, I went from
maybe
the worst time of my life to, oh yeah. I guess if
it's
you
a
want to
warning
call it
shot across the
care.
bow there.
Well, it wasn't across the bow. It was my whole body, man. It was an explosion. If you want to take it that way.
Damn, it was an explosion, wasn't it?
I can.
Wow.
It
wow,
was,
up top,
man.
God.
Yes. Yeah, I'm telling you, it was an explosion. I'll tell you, I did not know what love, joy, peace, happiness, and what a true father was until that. Until that day.
David,
it was awesome.
David, would you say that he came deep inside you? Like he exploded all over your insides, right?
Yes. If you want to put it that way, I love joking around, and there's nothing wrong with it. But yes, it changed everything.
Okay.
Well, in fact, I'm wondering, David. I didn't know what I didn't. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of curious. How do you differentiate your experience with the experience of like Muslims out there that have the exact same kind of experience as you do, or anybody of any other religion that feels, their particular deity, having a profound effect emotionally on them? Like, how do you know? I guess what I'm asking is, how do you know it's real as opposed to not?
It's the only thing that's real that's ever happened in my life. I can't, and then that's the thing. If somebody told me and explained it to me, if they knew, and you can call it a mental breakdown, you can call it anything you want in psychology wise, like it was an emotional break or whatever, whatever you want to consider it. I can't prove it to you. That's the problem. But I can tell you,
I mean, I don't think that either of us are trying.
The way I read.
Right. Well, I don't think that either of us are trying to label your experience as any particular psychological sort of thing here. But I guess what I'm just trying to figure out is like if a Muslim were to come to you and be like, Allah had this profound effect on me. I was in the face down, ass up prayer stance, and I felt Allah, just really affect me really hard, and I know that Allah is the one true God and everything like that. Like how I guess
was it all over him and inside him? That's the question.
Yeah. He was face down, ass up. I'm sorry. He was face down, ass up. Obviously, it was all inside of him.
He was already. He was in position. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
both him and Allah were facing towards Mecca.
Yeah.
To be honest, yes, I wouldn't if he could. That's the thing. It's so personal. If he could explain the same things, I know Jesus just showed up as another form. I'm not a universalist, but at the same time, my God's not going to kill a child. He's not going to kill somebody with a clean heart that's a Muslim. That wants purity, that is seeking something higher than himself. And I think that's what it comes down to. You're not seeking yourself. You're just seeking something higher than yourself.
Well, so I know that you're trying to differentiate Jesus from the Old Testament God, right? I get that sense from you. Would that be correct? Okay.
That'd be correct.
So I recently put on my Facebook page an image that it has John Bernthal's Punisher versus Jesus, and I had the statement that one of these people would stop a person from being raped, and the other person would watch the rape happen and blame the victim. Now, obviously, the one that I think that would watch the rape happen and blame the victim is Jesus, and I'm just kind of curious. Do you have any kind of like evidence in your theology that Jesus would actually like be the one to stop a rape from happening?
Do I think? I don't know. There's stories, and I'll just tell you, I've debated that myself. And I know he said, I'm not the God of this world. If I was, I would have come down. He says that to Pontius Pilate before he's taken up on the cross. And I get that. And in fact, when he was with Satan in the wilderness, right, it was all Yahweh's laws that were thrown in front of him that he was trying to get him to falsify or commit. So I know the God of the Old Testament. He's freaking wicked. He's like an abuser. You know, he's like, he loves on you and then he tries to kill you the next second. Ask Moses about that. And his wife that had to lop off his kid's dick in order to keep him alive and then smear the blood on his face. I mean, it's wicked.
Well, to be
Emergency
fair,
circumcision.
yeah, I was going to say, to be fair, it wasn't a total like lobbing off of the member. It was just the tip. But yeah, point taken.
I mean, it's just I've said that before. You know.
Yeah,
but yes.
Don't let your priest hear that.
Yeah, no, I'm not worried about the priest, dude. That's not how God is, and I know He's not. It's about the purity of the heart. And dude, I'm just trying to talk to you. I'm just telling you where God took me. And you know what?
No.
If it's a delusion in my head or it's fake, you know, so what? So be it. I'm not going to deny it, dude, because it's the only time I felt whole my whole entire life. And I've been to church, I've been to charismatic, I've been to Baptist, I've been to everything. And then it was the point where I'm like, when I came to the end of myself, just like he says in Scripture, that's when my life changed. And I know it's nothing about religion that we see today.
Well, I mean, I don't mean to tell you what to do, but have you tried therapy?
Actually, yes. I was in it for like a year and a half before that, but that was with my spouse. And I did everything I could to change my life. It was work. And it was just, I don't know. I was just trying to do everything I had never tried in my life, everything I hadn't fought against, I tried to do. And it was all a fight. And once I gave up on that, that's when my life changed.
Right. I'm trying to get a sense of your theology here. Do you consider Jesus to be like the triomni sort of kind of God, or do you think that Jesus is limited in his godhood?
No. I think unless he was given something, he said, I'm not telling you to pray to me. He said, I'm telling you, through me, I will connect you to the Father. He said, don't pray in me. Don't pray to me. He said that. He said, I'm connecting you to the Father.
Okay. So there's a separate God.
It reads plain and clear. He's showing us the way. He walked us. That's the thing. Why do you think he got baptized by John the Baptist? He didn't have to do that. He was walking out how we should live our lives with the pity, the love, with not pity, but the love, the care, the kindness, with everything. He walked his life out. He was trying to show us how to walk. And is that esoteric?
So
maybe
well, David. So would the God the Father, would he be the triomni God, or you just don't believe in the triomni God in general?
I don't believe in the triomni God. I'm not.
Don't you have to reject like so many Bible verses to make this work? Like, don't you have to reject don't you have to reject like basically every book in the Bible?
So let me help you out. What did God say? He said, "There's too much for me to say now." He said, "There's too much for me to say now." He said, "When I go, I will send you the Spirit of truth, and He will lead you into all truth." What do you think?
So
How do I
determine
what?
Sorry, I'm just asking. How do you determine like what's true and what's false? Like, how do you determine what the true church is and what the false church is?
You can look at what it produces. I mean, it's not hard.
Is that it? It's just like vibes. Like you just go in and you.
No, that's the thing. You're using your own judgment instead of going back and not judging anybody, and say, God, show me where is the true spirit. Where do you want me to go? How do you want me to see? I'm not judging this person. You could see somebody begging for money and they're on the side of the road. Don't judge out of your own will. Go beyond yourself. And it's
do you arrive at
God.
this? do you arrive at this based on like reading the Bible and like trying to figure out which one is like teaching the true things?
That's true. And then you find out you don't even actually have all the books that should be in there.
This makes no sense at all to me, like historically speaking. Maybe you could help me with this. So it sounds like Jesus had, or like God, I guess, had like just a really like horrible plan, because if the way that you're supposed to find out what the correct church is by trying them out, you know, reading through the Bible, seeing what resonates with you, then it's so strange that he gave, or that he came at a time when nobody could read. You know, the only way that you had access to the Bible was by going to the Catholic Church, and that was true for like the first 1,000 years. And then at that point, you had the choice between the Orthodox and Catholic Church. And it was only like the last like 300 years that you had like all this like Protestant stuff going on. So if what Jesus wants is for us to be Protestants, it's so weird that he came at the time that he did.
He doesn't want us to be Protestants, dude. In fact, I think if you go back to the early church, way before 320, when they decided to put the Bible together, they threw out anything that was spiritual, anything that was deeper than that, anything that led you from your heart, from the Spirit, and they kicked that out. That's the only thing I've figured out. And then
they brought you to the Catholic Church.
Yeah, and then they developed the Catholic Church. That's men, control, power, money. There you go. And in fact, the
why would he do it like
everything.
This? Or at least why not like wait until a time when people are literate so that they could, if this is the method that we're supposed to be engaging in, then it feels like the people for the vast majority of history were getting shafted in terms of like their options.
No, you're freaking great. No, you're right. Before it was written down solidly, before it was taught the way it is today, it was all passed on by word of mouth. Before it was written down, from like 100 AD to 300 AD, some of the latest scriptures are written. It was passed on by word of mouth. And the main thing they pushed back then, it was spiritual. It was not a connection. He said, I will come to you and teach you the truth. And dude, if you seek with all your heart and you lower everything you have in you, he's going to lead you to the truth. It's going to lead you to the things that are correct.
So David, I feel like you have to selectively choose, cherry pick what Jesus says in order to come to your particular view, because Jesus
I only love certain cherries. Only certain cherries I like, and I just grab them, whenever they're good.
Caress them.
You're correct.
My man.
Got to make sure you give that reach around. But because I mean, there's several points where Jesus reaffirms the Old Testament. Like you've got Matthew 5:17 through 19, where he says that all of the commandments given in the Old Testament, he didn't come to abolish those, that he came to reaffirm them actually, and that they're not going to go away until his second coming.
So can you please give me 1 minute to explain this? He said they must all be fulfilled, but before it will be over. And here's the thing. If you look in the New Testament, I believe it's Matthew or Mark, he actually not only goes over those 10 commandments, but he expands on them way over what Yahweh or that fake God used to do.
No. So there were 613 commandments.
Yes. Man commandments. Yeah. That's the point. He actually lays out every commandment.
So were the 10 commandments, were those man's commandments or were those God's commandments?
The 10 commandments, I believe, were God's commandments. And he actually goes over them and explains them thoroughly. And in fact, you don't even look at a woman. You don't lust after your neighbor. He goes into deep detail. It's in Matthew or Mark, and I apologize, and I know I don't have time to look it up. But he actually goes into deep detail. And dude, it's things you would want everybody around you to do. It's not even a question.
So David, hold on. So it's kind of curious that you mentioned that. about the coveting your neighbor's property. Why didn't Jesus tell people at that time, take the opportunity there to correct something maybe the evil God did and say, hey, look, women aren't property. Also, it's a bad thing to have chattel slaves. Why didn't Jesus mention any of that?
So I'm going to give you a thing, and then some of this may come from Gnostic. It may come from the regular Bible if you actually read it for what it is. And you see the God of the Old Testament. He had to, in order to subvert everything that had been done from the fallen angel, I'm going to call him Yahweh, and I'm sure I just offended a lot of people. The God Yahweh coming down, and he was the fallen angel, and he took over this world. And all he did from the very beginning, from kicking us out of Genesis, from kicking us away from the tree of life, he was a murderer from the beginning. They were destined to die after that. They could not reach the tree of life to keep them alive. Okay? Jesus,
I'm sorry, could you answer my question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Well, because my question
one more time.
Right. I mean, my question was, why didn't Jesus take the opportunity when he's talking and extensively going over the 10 commandments for the Exodus 20:17, the 10th commandment, for him to say, hey, women are not property. Also, it's bad to own chattel slaves. Like it kind of seems like it would be a pertinent time for him to make those clarifications.
If you treat your neighbor like you would want yourself treated, you would never have a slave.
That doesn't cover my point. My point is that if you're talking about Jesus extensively going over the 10 commandments, he should have taken the time, especially at the 10th commandment, to specify that women are not property. But he doesn't do that.
Yeah, but look, at the same time, you're trying to say he didn't say that. At the same time, a woman that had been caught in adultery, he let off and he said, "Woman, I do not judge you, as anyone around you judged you."
Yeah, that's like a third. That's like a 4th century addition to the Gospels. The original manuscripts didn't have that story.
Hey, dude, I'm just quoting what I understand of the Bible and what I know Jesus did. Dude,
well, I mean, I was just letting you know that particular story is not something that was part of the original Jesus story. So originally, Jesus did not protect a woman caught in adultery, but that also doesn't absolve him of the fact that he did not say women are not property.
Yes, but if the story is true, and that's the thing, where do you cut it off? Because I see him on one side doing that, and I see him saying, "Judge your neighbor as you want to be judged." What are the 2 greatest commandments?
They said that in the Old Testament too.
I know you know this.
That's from the Old Testament, right? If that was true in the Old Testament times, then it makes no sense that God would say, like, love thy neighbor. Also, you can own slaves.
Yeah. Well, that's the same thing. He charged.
I mean, you're also. No, I was just going to point out that you're also at the same time saying that the Old Testament God is evil. You're using the Old Testament God, one of the commandments or one of the teachings of the Old Testament God, to reaffirm Jesus's teaching about do unto others as they would have them do unto you. So I mean, it just kind of seems weird.
Yeah, I'll take it this way. When I went back to the Old Testament, and this is what broke the camel's back, and I started reading from Genesis on, and I see Abraham. He goes to I think the first one was somebody else. I don't think it was an Egyptian, and he lies about his wife, okay? And because he lied about his wife, God punished him. He didn't punish Abraham for lying and saying, Sarah is not my wife, right? And then he reaped all these rewards out of it. In fact, for lying, he actually gained a bunch of stuff. I mean, I can go on and on. It's through the whole Old Testament. It's freaking wicked. I mean, if you read it for how it is and you don't put apologetics toward it.
I don't see how this is actually addressing anything that either Ian or myself have brought up. Because
Like, we're just gonna agree
apologize.
with you, right? Like, we totally agree with you. It is horrific.
No, dude, we're on the same thing. But the Jesus thing, the reason I have an apprehension toward that, because he's the one that changed my life. He's the one that came over me and changed, I mean, my whole perception where I could actually read the Bible. And I know this is just me saying this. You can consider it a mental breakdown or put whatever, worldly thing you want on it. I'm just telling you what God did for me. And I'm just trying to say it in an honest fashion. And I'm telling you, when I was at my wit's end, that's when he changed me. If you can ask your question one more time, I'll try to stay on topic. Please forgive me.
Okay. So I mean, the current question was, why are you using an Old Testament, supposedly evil God, moral teaching, but just using the Jesus form of it? Like, it seems to be a bit confusing there, with the way that you're portraying.
But Jesus, okay, please. So when Jesus said it, he said, I never told you an eye for an eye. He said, but the person that hurts you, to forgive them. And in fact, if they asked you to go 1 mile, in fact, he went against everything the Old Testament said. Everything. And in fact, Satan, yes, tell me where he didn't.
Well, tell you where he didn't go against the Old Testament? I mean, the entire 10 Commandments. He also reaffirms that the entirety of the commandments, to adhere to them. I guess I don't know what you mean. Like, he says that you should keep all of the commandments.
Yeah, he says,
and
like,
and
not one stroke, not one, or sorry, what is it? Like, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass until heaven and earth pass away.
Tittle.
Yeah.
Yes. No, not one jot or tittle will pass away until everything is complete. And that's the point.
And is everything complete?
It.
Wait, so you think heaven and earth have passed away? Because that's what that verse says. Until heaven and earth pass away, none of this will pass.
And I think, and look, dude, and I know this might be out there, and I can understand how it can be construed. I think it is a mental deal where you're either living in this world or you've been out of this world to a point, if you want to see it that way. Like, I was afraid of death, all this stuff. I was depressed, oppressed, whatever you want to consider it, and until that moment. And I haven't seen that. I'm not afraid of death, dude. It really doesn't matter.
Well, wait, let's just get very linear about this, just to make sure we can make progress. I'll read the verse. This is Matthew 5:18. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law until all is accomplished. So just to make sure we're on the same page, until what happens will the law pass away?
Until it's complete. And if they took a purely innocent man that actually followed every one of the laws.
Until heaven and earth pass away? How about that? Would you agree that it's until heaven and earth pass away?
So what did Jesus represent? Did he represent
certainly
this
not
world?
Heaven and earth passing away? Heaven and earth are still here.
Okay. Did Jesus represent this world? He said, I'm not of this world. I'm not here to protect it. He said that to. He said, if I was, I could bring down multiple legions.
Listen, David, you've been like nice. I've enjoyed talking to you, but like we can't have you like just not answering the question. Do you agree or disagree that until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law?
Incorrect. And what I would say,
you agree with that, or you don't? I misheard you.
No,
I think
I agree with that. I'm trying to understand.
Okay, then the law is still in effect.
I would say that, but if you're judged under the law, then it's death. And here's the thing. So let me tell you about Yahweh.
David.
Let me tell you about what, please.
No, David.
Not even 30 more seconds.
David, hold on. Do you know what it says directly after Matthew 5:18?
Yes. Go ahead. I apologize, sir. I don't have it pulled up.
No, it's fine. It goes into it directly, and I mean, either Ian or I can read it for you if you need us to. But it basically says that if you teach,
I can read it. Yeah. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven, but whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For truly
Yeah,
I
so
tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven.
so
Correct.
right
And when
now
he
on
says,
this on
okay,
so David, if you're advising people that they not follow the 613 commandments laid down by Yahweh of the Old Testament according to Jesus, then you are going to be called least in the kingdom of heaven.
no, not one jot or tittle. Now, if you actually back up from that, go one chapter back, you actually see, in fact, 2 chapters back, he goes through, he lines those laws. 2 chapters back, he starts lining those laws. It's all red letter, depending on, I hope you're reading the ESV. It's probably one of the cleanest translations from the Greek, the LXX. I'm telling you, he lines out everything, and it goes against what Yahweh said. It's not an eye for an eye. It's not, he changes up so much stuff, Yahweh said. And it's just about having a pure heart, being a clean person.
Well,
and I can understand him saying that.
Jesus changed a few things, like the dietary laws, right? Like you can eat under Jesus, you can eat shrimp. That's fine. So I mean, he does change a few things there, but I mean, for the most part, the 613 commandments, I mean, he's reaffirming them here.
Well, he doesn't reaffirm all of them. He goes over the 10 commandments, but except he goes deeper, and it's all about heart. Not just antics.
He still stays shallow enough to keep women as property and to reaffirm chattel slavery to the point where he says slaves obey your masters. Maybe that was Paul, but either way.
So check this out. So take the woman at the well. He committed adultery, and he said, "No, ma'am, you've actually had 4 husbands, right?" But then he went back to her house and taught them for days on end. And they were goyim, if you look at it from Israel's perspective. I'm telling you, Israel, the Jews today, are still doing the same stuff they did back then. Mass murdering, taking over lands. I'm just, I don't want to, actually, never mind. I shouldn't have said that. I don't want to hurt your channel. So, but anyway.
What?
That's
they're
okay.
still doing the same things they did back in the day.
We've said the word rape like 30 times this episode.
Did I say right? Oh,
yeah,
my
you can
bad.
say. I think I don't know. I'm of the opinion that it's like you can say whatever you want, just like don't say slurs or whatever.
Yeah. Yes, I don't want to slur anybody. I'm just telling you, you can see the same habits back in the Old Testament. Here's the thing. Check this out. This is an overall picture. If you want to look at the 100-mile view of the Old Testament to the New Testament, the Old Testament God was all about lands, property, power, everything. You're going to be over everything of this world. Jesus said just the opposite. Hey, this isn't my place. He said
makes
that
it less coherent.
He was like, and that's the thing. They tied it together back. That was during Catholicism when it started. Yeah, no, they disagree. Marcionism. Go back to that. In fact, I didn't even know about Marcion until God led me to that. And then I found out, oh crap, I'm not the first one that's seen this. I'm not the first one that has been led here.
So you realize that Marcion was typically held as a heretic, right?
Yeah, and you can call me a heretic, you can call me a goyim, you can call me whatever you want, and it's not going to hurt me. But all I know is I've studied the Bible, and so I studied myself right back out of the Old Testament and realized they're not the same people. They can't be. That is not his father. In fact, they're complete opposites. There's right-handed and there's left-handed. There's loving and then there's murderous.
But okay, but and I hate to harp on this, but still, Jesus reaffirms the 10th commandment, right? The 10th commandment has women as property, also reaffirming chattel slaves. So it seems like maybe Jesus isn't all that much different from the Yahweh God.
No, what's the 10th commandment? I apologize. I'm not remembering that because I never
It's
What is?
you shall not covet your neighbor's property, and amongst the property is listed the neighbor's woman, the male and female slaves, as well as other animals.
I can't. And that's in now. There's two different. Okay, they call it the Ten Commandments. It's not broken down like that, and there's like three different ones that are stated in the Old Testament. Which one are you talking about? Deuteronomy. I forget where they're all stated. There's three different ones, and they all have different stuff.
No.
So when you hear Ten Commandments in the Bible, it's jacked.
No. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is a bit of a pedantic sort of obfuscation of what we're talking about here. We both know which 10 commandments we're talking about, and there's not 3 10 commandments. There's actually 2 versions of the 10 commandments. Moses dropped the first version and had to get a rewrite from God, and the rewrite is what we actually have now as the 10 commandments. Okay?
Yes. Is there 2 copies, or I thought there was 3? I apologize if I said 3.
No, but
if there's only 2.
No, but I mean, there are 613 commandments. But David, we kind of been going around and around in a circle, and we do have one other caller to get to tonight.
Yes, sir.
No, you don't have to be sorry.
No, I understand. Hey, no, I'll leave it on one thing, and you can look this up. Even Moses called Yahweh evil because after they didn't do what they told him, he said, I'm going to kill all of them, and me and you are going to start over, is what Yahweh said to Moses. And Moses said, if you do this, everyone's going to call you evil. You didn't know that. Yeah, it's in Exodus. So
where's that at in Exodus?
Dude, I'd have to look it up, and I do not mind sending that to you, but I guarantee you it's going to take me a second. He calls them evil. If you go back to the Greek LXX, actually the Hebrew even has it. But they don't translate it the same. I think there's like 3 that actually translate it true for what it should be. Everybody he promised coming out of Exodus, he lied to every damn one of them about the land of milk and honey. It's about the sickest story. If you actually read it for what it is and you take the apologetics out of it, it's sick. The one thing I know is following what Jesus told me to do. And when I came to the end of myself, my life changed forever. And I'm just saying, anyway, I love you guys. I apologize. I don't mean to waste your time. And I know you got another guy coming in.
No, we didn't say that you wasted our time.
Called him evil.
You didn't. Hold on. No, I need to correct something. So you're most likely talking about Exodus 32, 11 through 14 here. And he calls an act by God evil, not that God was evil. Is essentially what it.
If you just went up and shot somebody because you were pissed at them, and I just said the act by you was evil, but you're not evil, just the act by you would be considered evil, and he has to correct the God of this universe that something might be evil, the omnipotent God.
I just feel like it's an important distinction, but because there's a difference in saying you're evil, and it's like, oh, that's an evil act. Like I don't know, it just seems like it is a bit of a difference. I mean, I would call the Old Testament God is evil, like, but I don't know. I feel like representing what the text actually says.
Yeah, but I'll just say it's.
Oh, Ian, I think you're
in the
muted,
wilderness.
maybe?
Oh, I am muted. That's my bad. Yeah, I was just saying it makes the theology like nonsensical. Also, you think not everyone you're not. You said earlier you're not a universalist, so you do think that. So you agree that your theology is like basically nonsensical, like impossible to arrive at. Like, but some people are going to get tortured for like not believing it.
No, hell no, they won't get tortured. That's the thing.
But you said you're not a universalist.
My God. I'm not. I guess I'm not a universalist. I just know Jesus is real. Do I think people across the world that have never heard his voice, that are sitting there crying out to whatever God they've got, do you think he hadn't? I mean, that is so simplistic. That is so small-minded that they just have to believe in the Jews' God, the Old Testament God.
Well, I agree with that. But you said you're not a universalist. So who do you think goes to hell?
I guess I am. Okay, I guess I am, but no,
Okay.
I don't think there is any hell. No, dude, I
Well,
don't
but
think
then
there
why
is
not
any
just
hell.
make us all in heaven?
Dude, I wish. That would be great, brother.
It kind of
I
seems like
don't
all the
know
suffering
why.
that happens here happens for no reason.
And then that's the thing. I look back and I've watched a lot of NDA stories, where near death experiences or NDE stories. And a lot of them, it's crazy. I mean, we're talking probably, I don't know. I'm throwing numbers out there. I know it's over 50%. I was going to say 75% that I've listened to. They were there for a reason. And it was to learn something or something. I don't know. It kind of goes back to the Gnostic text to some extent, but I'm not sure. I don't know for sure, but it makes sense. There was something we needed to learn in our spirits.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, hey, we might
I
move
don't
on.
know, but
Or,
anyway,
oh,
I
wait,
love
never
you guys.
mind.
Yeah.
Damn it. The other
So
guest hung
Yeah.
up.
did the guy
That's too
hang up?
bad.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
guys,
it's too
dude. I'm
bad.
not
It's
trying to
too
jack
bad.
y'all up.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
but
I mean, now you're the only one in queue.
yeah, but anyway, so in fact, you want to see Yahweh is the devil?
Wait,
He is the
David, let me
dragon?
just ask you a question, David, point blank.
Yes.
If you knew with absolute certainty that your belief was false, do you think you'd stop believing?
Hold on. One more time, because it
Yeah.
didn't
Like
register. I apologize, sir.
if somebody like proved to you with 100% certainty that your belief was false, would you change your mind about it?
And here's why. That's a tough one. I see what you're saying.
It shouldn't be.
How can? And this is what my problem is, and I'm going to tell you why. If God hadn't or Jesus hadn't revealed Himself to me, I wouldn't. There's no way I can't go back on that. It's the only thing that's ever been real in my life. The only thing. Period.
Okay.
Don't tell your wife that.
Yeah. No, she knows. Believe me. We were going through the worst time I'd ever been through, and the only thing I could think, year and a half worth of marriage counseling, nothing was changing. And I was like, God, I gotta get a divorce. Like, I can't handle this anymore. This is worthless. I mean, it's just, but I know it's against you. I knew it was against God, and I cried out to Him, and I was like, God, help me. And it's when I came to the end of marriage counseling, me trying to fix it, everything. And dude, I'm telling you, in one moment, I've been through a bad hurt things, right? Being electrocuted almost to death and everything. Okay, cool. That was the worst emotional thing that ever happened to me. And when I came to the end of myself and I cried out to God, dude, He came over me with power, lightning. I knew who my Father was. I knew truly that day what love was. And I know this is just my witness testimony. I can't prove it to any of y'all. Cool. That's why I say it doesn't matter what you can try to prove to me Jesus is fake. What He says He does, He says, I will come to you. Me and my Father will make a home to you. I will reveal myself to you. That verse right there, I know it's true now. Whatever happens besides that, what man has wrote, what Catholicism has jacked up, what scriptures have been changed, they have been added to, none of that really matters. I understand who Christ is.
What would you do if tomorrow?
Who the Father is.
What would you? Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe you have something to ask.
No, you go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, what would you do if tomorrow Ganesh came to you and was like, I'm Ganesh. Look at my trunk.
What if Ganesh blows your back out?
Is Ganesh Sumerian? Is that Sumerian or what?
No, he's Hindu.
Or which one?
Yeah, what if
okay, Hindu.
What if Ganesh and Allah are like tag teaming you?
I guarantee you, it's not Ganesh, it's not Buddhist, it's not anything. When somebody fully submits their heart and they're looking to something greater than themselves, that's when it'll happen. Maybe that's spirituality. I don't know, man. I really don't know. And I don't want to mislead anybody either. I can just tell you where God's brought me, and I've just followed Him to the Bible, and I can show you in the Bible where it's at.
So David, the thing that keeps me, for one thing, thoroughly confused about your theology, but also kind of away from the Jesus character, is the fact that He passes up on many opportunities to lay down actual moral teachings, like teachings that are better. I mean, Ian earlier laid out how, like, even the do unto others as you would have them do unto you is superseded by more modern, moral statements and moral philosophies. So, like, why couldn't Jesus, like, actually provide us with, like, good moral teachings? Instead, we're left with women or property, and Jesus reaffirming,
No,
the slavery aspect of things. And
but he doesn't. But I don't know where you're getting that from.
but he
What
does.
translation are you guys reading? No, please. Here, I'm going to
The
look up.
Bible.
Where did Jesus spell out the commandments? Okay, there you go. I'm telling you, he writes it out, and he writes it out 10 times better than whatever the crap they had in the Old Testament. In fact, he goes thoroughly beyond everything they ever did, and it's common sense.
I mean,
in fact, everybody you ever want around you in your life, you want them to follow these things. It has nothing to do with
so
sexuality. It has nothing to do
David,
with it's all
David.
more. Oh, go ahead, sir.
Well, I was just going to say, the thing that I remember about Jesus saying about the commandments, other than reaffirming all 613, is that he says that the greatest commandment is to love the God the Father with all your heart. That was the greatest commandment. And I mean, how do you love God the Father with all your heart? You follow his commandments. Like, how else do you know what God the Father wants?
He tells them, all of them, in the New Testament, and in fact, he goes way beyond whatever was told before. And in fact, dude, I'm telling you, all the 613, the ones above the 10 are all just trash. Jeremiah 8:8, the lying pen of the scribes, the prophets. It's just,
Jeremiah is Old Testament. You're giving
that's
us
fine.
the evil liar,
he's
telling
calling
us about the evil liar.
Yeah, no, that's the point. Jeremiah is calling out the evil liar. He's saying the lying pen of your scribes. Behold, the truth is, the lying pen of the scribes have made the law a falsehood.
I don't think that was
adding,
talking about the 613 commandments there.
Yeah, it was. They kept on adding and adding to them to control men. What do you see in churches today? Baptist, Protestant, Catholic. They had law upon law, line upon line. They are the dragon.
Is Paul evil?
The modern. That's a tough one. I haven't spent enough time on that. I've only been down this road for like a year and a half, and I have not dug into that. I know some things he has said. A lot of the stuff he says is spiritual, and you will not understand it unless you're spiritual. I will say Jesus, in fact, he said, everything I say is done in a parable. So you take Jesus's line, and it's not every single word he says, except for when he's explaining the parables to the disciples. You can't understand it. And that's one thing God showed me when he came over me. I'm telling you, I could not read the Bible. I get tired. I did not care about it. I went to church most of my life, and dude, it just saddened me. I used to sit there and look at the women on stage and undress them and feel bad about it. I'm dressing them in my head until that day, and it broke every chain off of me. But anyway, what I'm saying is the lying pen of the scribes. That was a weird flex. Well, it's not a flex, dude. I'm glad God freed me from that.
Maybe Christ changed your life for the better.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, well, I guess he came all over me. So I'm just saying, I'm joking. I'm just trying to meet y'all. Yeah. Dude,
yeah.
God is not a prude. Jesus is not a prude. He's not. I really don't. You're not offending me, dude. I'm just telling you my witness. Yeah.
What about that's right. That's right. Because you just like reject all the verses that you don't like. So you would probably reject like the Jesus verse that says that you can't get divorced.
Dude, I reject half the Bible, bro. So it's not like it's not going to be that hard.
I'm sorry, that was a dumb question. So, it's because you had your personal experience. Yeah. Well, it's like literally, I don't know.
And that's the thing. I know I can't prove it to you, and I'm not trying to.
What's the point of reasoning if you, I don't know, if your belief is like unreasonable?
And that's the thing. I think your belief comes down to where your heart's at, and I think that's what Jesus was trying to say from the very beginning. He said, there is too much to teach you now. He said, I will come to you. He said, I will send the Spirit of truth, and he will come to you, and he will lead you to all truth. What do you think Paul claims? He was off in the wilderness for 14 years, studying and being taught by Christ. And then he came back to, not Peter, what do they call him? Well, it is Peter. They call him by another name, Barnabas. And he said he came back to him just to make sure he hadn't been led astray. And then he told them everything. And they said, man, dude, yeah, you're right on. And then he called Peter a hypocrite. And it was like, you're a little prig. So what the hell are you doing? Are you dumb person? So, yeah, because how he was treating the Goyim, the regular people, compared to the Jews. But anyway, go ahead. I apologize.
You're fine. So I'm looking right now at the mentions of the commandments by Jesus, and he doesn't actually go deep into it. He just casually lists off a subset of the commandments. Like he says,
can you please give me the
yeah,
here,
it's Matthew.
I'm opening up my Bible app.
It's Matthew 19:16 to 22, and there's also Mark 10:17 to 22. But I mean, he just basically runs down the list, a subset of the 10 commandments. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not give false testimony, honor your father and mother, and love your neighbor as yourself.
Dude, that's not it. Matthew 6, and I apologize. I say that's not it. Matthew, what? I apologize.
19:16 to 22.
Gotcha. Oh, the rich man.
Okay.
And it should go on for like 2 chapters. No. Laborers in the vineyard. Oh, yeah. You've got to understand the parables that go behind this. I'm just telling you, and I'm not trying to. There is deep understanding in everything he says after that. What's the other one? I mean, you had the one in Matthew. What's the other one's in Mark, correct?
Yeah.
Mark what?
Mark 10:17 to 22.
Mark 10, yeah. And he goes into the same parables. That's where it goes deep. Jesus cleaning the temple. No, these aren't it. Dude, this is not what I'm talking about. I apologize, sir. If I would have known, I would have had this ready. He actually goes over every single thing. It's in the New Testament. It's not these two. Where, if you give me a minute, and I don't want to give you clothes there, and I know that's not good for your show, but Jesus break down the parables. Come on, AI. Matthew 5:17. And I don't know if that's it. Yep.
Well, there is 5:21 through 30 where he does mention some of the 10 commandments. Like you shall not murder, but then he extends it. Hold on, but then he extends it. He says, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. Again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, Raka, is answerable to the court. Anyone who says, you fool, will be in danger of the hellfire. I mean, does that really seem like all that good of a thing? Like, I mean, this is very anti-free speech.
And that's why he's warning them, because you're going to be, everything he's warning of is saying you're going to be in judgment of the God of this world. He said, I'm not the God of this world. This is not my world. He was warning them that they would be in judgment of the God of this world. That's the thing. That's why he had to follow every one of his
he
commandments.
says that you will.
That's why.
No, he says that you're going to go to hell if you call somebody a fool. Like, how is this a good command? Like, how is this a good deepening of the, you shall not murder thing? I mean, it even extends it saying that if you're just simply angry with somebody, you're guilty
and that's the
of.
thing.
Why are we criminalizing basic human emotions?
Because the God of this world wants to entrap you. That's it. And I guess
this is Jesus saying it. This is Jesus saying it.
No, like
it's not the God of.
He's warning you. No, that's the point. He said, "I'm not the God of this world," and he's warning you. I don't know what you mean by that. Like, if you do these things, no, you'll be held down and trapped to the judgment of the God of this world, the fallen angel, Yahweh, the same one that condemned everyone that came out of slavery. He killed every one of them in the desert. Every one of them. I'm sorry,
but you're twisting the scripture here. This is eisegesis, not exegesis.
Okay, listen, check this out. The people in the desert in the Old Testament, right? They were begging for. They said, we had all the fish we could eat in Egypt. They were in slavery. Sure, it didn't sound too bad. They were right there by the Nile. They said, we have all the fish we could eat. We had bread. We had all these things. And because they were complaining, Yahweh got pissed off. Dude, if your children, and I'm not sure if you have any, if you did, if not, if your kids were asking for something to eat and they were starving and they were like, hey, come on, man, we had water and everything we needed before you brought us out in this desert. Would you drag your kid out into the desert first of all? No, you wouldn't.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question. If your kid started begging for food, would you do it? And let's just say, and I'm going to show you something.
What are you talking about
This
now?
would be the coolest. No, you'll see. Well, out in Egypt and the Exodus, they were begging for stuff, and Yahweh was getting pissed off at them. The second time they did that, Yahweh got so pissed off because they were like, look, dude, did you bring us out here to kill us? I mean, we at least had, we had fish, we had water, we had everything. And one of the quotes from Jesus from the New Testament, this will show you who Jesus is. Jesus said,
David, I have no idea what you're ranting about right now. I have no idea how this connects at all. Like, I don't know where we're at in the conversation. I'm thoroughly confused.
Just give me 30 more seconds. Exodus.
30 more seconds. What the fuck, David?
No, 10 more seconds. Hey, listen,
no, it's 10 more seconds. You're bargaining with me like fucking Abraham bargaining with God.
I know. God, don't smoke me. Jeez. Come on, man. There's my foreskin. You get it? All right. I'm just kidding. All right.
No, please don't give me your foreskin. David, I don't know.
Okay.
Ian, I don't know if you've got anything else for David, but
yeah, I'm waiting for the plane to land and it's like fucking 9/11.
No,
it's
can I just please let me finish? All right. So look, after they were complaining, the second time they did it, Jesus says in the New Testament, he said, you even as an evil father can give your son good gifts. He said, if you ask for a fish, would you give them a snake? He says those exact words.
What does this have to do with anything, David? What? I have no idea.
Back in the Old Testament. No, they were asking for fish in the Old Testament.
They just hit the Pentagon.
Yeah, I know. He sent 50,000 snakes. He killed over 50,000 people with poisonous snakes. That's the God of the Old Testament, Yahweh. Jesus points it out.
I don't understand. What the fuck?
Hey, John, how about we just talk about
I promise I can put it down.
Yeah.
Oh, I love mysticism.
Hey, David, thanks so much for calling. You should take notes on this.
I love you guys.
Okay, I hung up on him.
Okay, yeah. Anyways. Oh my God.
Holy shit. Wow. Well, hey, I'm like super curious about mythicism. If you want to call and debate us, there's still time, 25 minutes. If you want to defend God, I wipe my ass with your Bible. Oh, you closed the lines?
Yeah. I mean, do you guys want me to open them back up to try to get one more in?
If one calls, that would be chill, but it's okay. It doesn't need to. Otherwise, I'm
ready
fine.
for super chats.
Okay, we could do supers.
Yeah. Okay, I'll start off and then we'll go back and forth there, Ian, if you want to.
Sure.
So first up, we've got Joshua Everett, who says, I find the discussion of free will to be one of the least important. It can't matter whether I choose or am determined. Nothing changes. What is. I don't know. You know, honestly, I'm rather intrigued by the discussion of free will and its effect, you know, like in the discussion at large. I don't know. How do you feel about it, Ian?
Yeah, I think I feel this way about a lot of things that are verbal disputes, is that it's kind of hard to care, right? Like when you're talking about God, that's like the God debate is quite substantive. Like there's like a real question at stake, you know. Is there, well, maybe not for David, but you know, for the rest of us, there's like a real question at stake, right? Like, is there a mind that does this entity exist in, it doesn't need to be like physical, but in like, you know, I exist and you exist. Does this God exist in like the same sense, or is it fictional? Like that's a real substantive dispute. But then with free will, it kind of does just feel like you're arguing about like what the throat sounds that come out of your mouth, like what sort of meaning we attach to them. And it's like, I kind of just don't give a shit. You can call it Shmee Will if you'd like.
Shmee Will.
Joshua Everett, thanks so much for the super chat. It seems that theists and conservatives and nonsense peddlers are just smart enough to be terrified of trying to put one past Ian and John. Yeah, many such cases, many such cases.
Yeah, it always amazes me because it's either feast or famine whenever you know, the shows are on, and when it's a famine, it can be a bit difficult. God Sinner says, thank you for the super chat there, bud. Says, for me, y'all never have to apologize for info dumping. I love learning how early religions evolved into what they are. My favorite thing about watching Godless DZ or the overly sarcastic pod, hours of information and fun. You get me on the right subject and I won't stop talking. I have to try to taper myself.
I love overly sarcastic. Duskframe, thanks so much for the super chat. The only Lord I worship is Lord Megatron, Decepticons forever. Soundwave superior, Constructicons inferior.
God Sitter again says, the lewd jokes remind me. Someone made a whole song out of a preacher's speeches and just the sheer volumes he speaks of Jesus coming. Can't find it. Yeah. You know, I think the innuendo that is inherent to that kind of description of God's effect on people, I don't understand how people cannot hear the words that are coming out of their mouth. It seems weird.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems obvious. I feel like I would retool my language if I often found myself in such a compromised position.
Oh, you mean the face down, ass up position? I gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, this sort of makes you want to convert religions.
All right. Well, I mean, that's going to be our show tonight. Really appreciate everybody stopping by. You know, I know that we kind of had that long call there with some really incoherent theology, but you know, Ian, I really had a fun time with you tonight, and I can't wait to host with you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thanks so much. I can't wait to host with you again next time. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. All of y'all have a nice night, a great week. We've got great shows coming up. Thank you to Lux for doing the producing. Thanks to all the mods. Thanks to everybody that helps make this show possible. You guys are awesome. Tomorrow's Chewed Gum. Everybody tune in for Chewed Gum. That's an awesome call-in show. And then, of course, Matt, everybody. And we're going to fade to black.